Ladies and gentlemen, are we on? Okay. Welcome to the June 12th, 2025 Board of Education. Okay. Hey, Dave. Mic check. I didn't think I was. Oh my gosh. Test. Test.
That's better. You do have to kiss it a little. Okay, we're not starting.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the June 12th, 2025 Board of Education regular meeting. The time is 6:32 p.m. and I am calling this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Davala.
Here.
Heil.
Here.
Livia Wright.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Any discussion? Can I get a vote?
Davala.
Aye.
Heil.
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye. Okay, we welcome. Do you have my list yet? Okay. We welcome comments from stakeholders during D49's. I know. Check. We welcome comments from stakeholders during D49's open forum. Please stay seated until your name is called by the Board of Education chair, then approach the podium to introduce yourself. Speak clearly into the microphone and keep your remarks respectful and orderly. Personal complaints against individuals connected with the district, except for board members or the superintendent, are prohibited. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. The board will not respond during open forum, but may assign follow-up actions to the superintendent. We also encourage you to use the stakeholder grievance process for resolving complaints, which may culminate in a formal appeal to the board. Thank you for participating. Remember, when you introduce yourself, to state your relationship to the district. The views expressed in the forum are those of the commentators and do not represent official policy of District 49 or the Board of Education. Okay, first up we have John Gustafson. Next after him will be Ivy Liu, Yvonne Henderson, Holly Bombria, Sabrina Ballister, and John Graham. So if you want to move over to this area. And John, you are first up.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Shall I begin? Hi, my name is John Gustafson. I live here in Colorado Springs. I actually don't live in D49 district. I live in D11 district, just up the street. I was invited to talk today by a friend of mine who wanted to talk about the issue of globalism. It's a hard issue to talk about, and it's something that seems to be hard to get one's hands around. Nevertheless, it seems to be driving a lot of emotionality lately. I guess what I would like to say is my personal relationship with this issue started in 2019 when a series of events led into what I perceive as a soft revolution in how we do public education. A new modality where, in a very undemocratic way, people weren't allowed to have a vote or have a choice on decisions that affect them and their loved ones very, very keenly. And thanks for bearing with me, I'm just speaking off the cuff. You know, what I'd like to say about globalism is that it's so hard to pin down, but where it seems to lie is this very antisocial place. There seems to be something that almost requires SEL, social and emotional learning, to help mitigate the traumatization that happens when we force young people in front of screens all the time. And that's what we did when we had this huge explosion in taxpayer money, buying all these devices, utilizing these new modalities that, again, people really didn't have a democratic choice in, but has a direct bearing on our lives. And I guess I'll leave it at saying sometimes it feels that smart people who wear lanyards and walk in the corridors of power make decisions over our lives, very important decisions, while we're left to fight about trans bathrooms and stuff like that. And we're not able to articulate, but there definitely is energy. So I'm very glad to hear that some people here in D49 are also talking about it. Thank you all very much for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ivy Lou.
So we're going to have a discussion today about whether we want to turn our kids into a globalist. Why don't you for once take charge, take command, and say hell no to anti-American sentiments and philosophies? But no, we're going to have a discussion. We're going to have a survey of our community. Gee, none of us got surveys. Is it skewed again? Take charge. You took an oath to protect our children. You took an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and Colorado. And for the last 3.5 years, you have done nothing but voted against our children and the well-being of the future of our schools and our country. You have failed us. You failed us, and you are breaching the oath that you took. You should be put in prison. We're going to have a discussion about whether we want to turn our kids into globalists? Are you kidding me? The minute we found out that the global society was on a mission statement, should have been instant decision, board decision to say, take that out. Who put it in to begin with? We can't find it yet as to who voted for this. There's no board decision on the record. You can try avoiding my eyes. Lori Thompson, board president, do something worthwhile for a change. This is our children we're talking about. Even if you don't give a crap about your own children, keep smiling. We're going to make you very famous. This is America, United States. United States of America. And whether you are on the board and you have taken an oath or not, it is our job to protect our children. And you are not doing that.
Thank you. Next up, we have Yvonne Henderson.
Good evening. Yvonne Henderson. I live in the district. Concerning the mission statement, preparing students to be successful students in a global society. Global society, why? How about just successful Americans? Global society to me means the WHO, the WHO. COVID lockdowns, forced jabs, forcing our children to stay home away from their friends and social connections, not getting the proper education they deserve. The children suffered. The World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Koch brothers, all too radical. You will own nothing except them and be happy is their attitude. All about the Green New Deal, another scam to take our money that these groups, these people, the oligarchy are invested in just to become rich. So excuse me for not wanting to follow what these individuals have to say. Little bit by little bit, our rights and freedoms keep slipping away, and no one seems to notice or care to do anything about it. For all the good of the people, well, no, I'm not standing for it. all to make us stupid, so we won't say anything against them. They're taking our weapons away so we cannot protect ourselves, and we will become slaves to those individuals. We need our own ideas and thoughts, American ideas, American values. Rebuild what our forefathers intended for us, not these globalist individuals from other parts of the world that have no idea what our values
you.
are in mind. Thank you.
Sabrina Ballister.
Good evening. My name is Sabrina Ballister. I was a former taxpaying resident of this district, but now I'm out of this kind of south of Colorado Springs, an unincorporated area. But I'm still very much concerned with what's going on in the schools because this is our next generation for this country. About 4 years ago, I did a deep dive research into SEL. One of the things, I have a medical social work background with my master's degree, and I was pretty shocked to see the direction that education had taken a very sharp left turn in the 20 years or so since I was a social worker. But in the research that I studied, did deep dive on for social emotional learning, there was a guidebook on how to understand social emotional learning by Dr. Donna Black. In the prologue of that book, when I read the words that SEL will help to accomplish our globalist goals, my blood ran cold on that. Because that tied it all together for me, what this whole SEL being funded by Bill Gates, Novo Foundation, follow the money. The people that wanted all this were the far left trying to push America and pretty much the entire planet, because SEL is incorporated in other countries too, towards this one world order globalist ideal of their mission. And it's if you've read their mission statement, it's very disturbing. So I hope that D49, that all of you here on the board, will do your own research on globalist ideals. I understand, on the surface it looks like it's something that can be a good thing, but look deeper. It is not. And as Yvette was saying, nationalism is what we need to get back to, sovereignty of nations, and people to be proud of the countries they came from, work together as nations, but we don't all need to be under one world order. So I just ask that you please not allow that to be part of the education of the kids here. Yes, they can compete on a global stage, but they don't need to be globalist. Thank you.
Thank you. John Graham. If you could hold on just a moment, I have to go back because Holly Brombria was up first.
I don't mind. Hi, board members. Thank you for being here. I'm really grateful for each of you and the service that you give to D49. I'm Holly Bombria. I'm a D49 homeowner and the mom of 3 D49 graduates. I'm also a charter member of Village 7 Evangelical Presbyterian Church. I grew up attending church several times a week. I'm the winner of many Bible drills during Vacation Bible School. I particularly love the biblical book of Matthew as it has so many words printed in red and attributed to the teachings of Jesus. I believe in the U.S. Constitution and the separation of church and state. I believe in valuing all people in the D49 public education system. I've listened to many Bible verses quoted in this room. I know that the Bible can be used to support many different stances. One example, Proverbs 23:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." So which is it? It's whichever you interpret it to be. On Monday, I was honored to be able to attend a memorial service for Jack Scruton, a beloved woman in a marginalized community in Denver. Her cause of death is being investigated as suspicious. Many people spoke at her service. Several of them said things that apply to kids in D49, and I want to pass them along to you. Trans people live in fear. Trans kids need safe places and safe people so they can socially transition in relative comfort. This means to present themselves as they like and in the way that feels true to them. This includes using preferred pronouns. Trans kids grow up to be trans adults. Since gender is a construct, oh my gosh, please join me in building a firm foundation where trans kids and trans adults' lives are not lost to suicide and murder because of an atmosphere of
Excuse me, your
hate
time
and
is up, Holly.
non-acceptance. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Madam President, Board, my name is John Graham. I am a former board president as well as a parent and a member of active committees and such. Big supporter of District 49 when you get it right, and a big opponent when you get it wrong. I am wearing a D49 operations t-shirt today, but I am not an employee. I just like the color and the style, and I am one of the biggest fans of operations department and the employees. I'm here for two reasons. The first is to admonish Peter Hiltz and Brad Miller, and in extension, Madam President, yourself, but maybe admonish is a strong word. Actually, I really admire you and this board for your patience, for your due diligence, for your ability to deal with all the false witness, the slander, the fox anger, the threats that come from the noise, even the lawsuits that you keep winning. You, all of you, have taught me how to be a better Christian, and I'm very grateful for it. I know that District 49 has some tough decisions coming up, and I'm glad that you're open to community input and not just making arbitrary decisions. It's something that the board and the community decided many, many years ago that we would seek community input during these tough times. You're focused on the students, global citizens, global society. When this mission statement came about, we were talking about preparing students so they can be adults and business people in a global society, not members of the WEF or global citizens. So that was the buzzwords 10 years ago. Now the buzzwords are a little different, and rightly so. I'm very glad I heard some of the speakers talk about what our forefathers intended. Competing on the global stage is what you should be doing. Preparing students for adult life, whether they compete in the home, in business, in the nation, or on a global stage. I'm so proud that this district does that and prepares students for what they need to do when they get adulterized. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have an item that they want pulled from the consent agenda? Can I get a motion to approve all consent agenda items as presented?
I move to approve all consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
Can I get a vote, please?
Davala?
Aye.
Heil?
Aye.
Livia Wright?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Thompson?
Aye, and that passes. Okay, let me think here. What do we have? I'm looking for. Is this out of order? Because when did we get the super? Okay, we are on to the superintendent update.
Okay, so I have a mercifully short update. There are obviously we are through graduations. Graduations were amazing, and I know some of you will speak to those, so I won't spend a lot of time. But I am always moved when we were at Robeson Arena with the goal high school graduation, and we counted, and I guessed low. Lori was a better guesser than me, but we counted 17 mothers, 3 fathers, 21 or 22 babies, because some of the students came across with 2 children. And I am just personally moved to be part of an organization that sponsors a school that makes it possible for young parents to both be parents and high school graduates. It's a really big deal to me. And among many things that we do well, that is one that we do exceptionally well, and it has an impact on multiple generations. So I'm gonna focus my comments by just referencing that. Every graduation was spectacular. There were phenomenal moments throughout, great student speeches. All of you heard some of them. Some of you heard all of them. I was privileged to go to 10 graduations this year, and it's just the best time of the year, and they sparkle in your heart. So thank you all for being there and being as enthusiastic as anyone about them, and for seeing the great things that our students are doing. I will say something that will maybe shock members of our audience, but in my 36 years in education now, I have never been to a graduation where students crossed the stage with an emotional support lizard. But we saw 2 bearded dragons come across the stage. 2 bearded dragons came across at the Banning Lewis Prep Academy graduation. So that was a first. Who knows what we'll see in the future? There was one. That's right. And P-Tech, but also BLA. It was amazing. Unprecedented and amazing. And so thank you. We've come through a major milestone, finishing out the part of the school year that we call the school year, ending with graduation. But as you know, lots of hard work continues. We are ramping up. You'll hear quite a bit about budget preparation. I had a chance to spend a couple of days with our primary vendor, Sentinel in Chicago. That I'll come back to you with a report at a later date about that. But what a treat, and what a high point to get to go to those graduations. So thank you for being there, and that will be my report.
Thank you. And you're a year behind, because I met the first bearded lizard emotional support pet last year at P-Tech. So Director Schmidt.
So it was a happy month. I attended 5 graduations. I usually like to go to the smaller ceremonies, in part because I find them more personal, but also I like to be there for the students who don't always have the big fancy graduations like the large high schools do. I was part of the Zoom meeting on Social Studies American History being considered as a graduation requirement. There was good input from all, and I think many of us felt that this is important for students to know our history and how our constitutional republic works. I also met with Rebecca Brooks, who's our new CFO, and was happy to see that she is really taken seriously and grabbing on to the chore of teaching us board members what they do in the finance department, and at least an overview of how and why they do it. She was very patient and answered my questions, even if I may have repeated myself on 1 or 2. I humbly offered a suggestion or 2, and she was very open to my ideas. I mean, she may never use them, but she listened. I came out of the meeting with more knowledge about the budget and look forward to learning even more so I can vote in the best interest of our students, which is what we are all here for. I also met with Nancy Lamond, and she gave me some great clarification regarding special populations in the district. She was good at explaining the why and the laws regarding special populations. Between those 2 meetings, I wish that all board members were scheduled for such meetings at the beginning of their terms. I think everyone and the district would benefit from that. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Heil.
So continuing the theme of graduation season, I also attended 5 of them. Wonderful. I did get to listen in on a little conversation with some of the staff members at one of the high schools where they were talking about We seem to approach it as if we've never done it before, and it's a brand new ceremony every time, and lots of guesswork, but they come off very professionally, and I really appreciate all the work that goes into all of those. Before graduation came, there was a unique opportunity. The Colorado State Supreme Court does a Court in the Community program where they go to 2 school districts per year, and D49's number came up, and so they were at Falcon High School, and our students got to observe 2 cases, arguments and questions from the judges, including one civil and one criminal case. And then in between, the students were given an opportunity to do Q&A with the lawyers, not just about the case, but just what is it like to be a lawyer. So a lot of these students that were invited were very keen to enter that career, and what a wonderful opportunity it was for them. And then afterwards, they got to do Q&A with the justices and then have lunch with them. So amazing opportunity, and I'm really glad that they brought that to D49 and get to share that with our students. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is I attended the end of the year SEAC, Special Ed Advisory Committee, and they did a new thing for the first time where they were doing awards for SPED teachers, and the nominations came from parents, and they read off the emails and gave them each their award. It was really, really touching. They got great participation, much more than they anticipated. And, it was a first-year dry run. They got together and they huddled up immediately afterwards, and they came up with some great ideas for improving that in the future. So looking forward to seeing that again. That's all I have.
Director Olivia Wright.
So I went to 4 graduations, in part because I had a senior this year, and so part of my time was being spent making sure he actually graduated. But I'm going to take this time to actually say thank you to a bunch of people. The circumstances that led to my son eventually becoming my son happened Memorial Day weekend 18 years ago. So he graduated from high school 18 years after those circumstances. And D49 has been involved from about the point I had had him, I believe, 6 to 8 weeks when Child Find came to my home. And those folks have long retired, Kim Boyd and Connie Michaels-Lip and her whole team. And they have partnered with us and helped me to become the mom my son needed and taught me how to be his mom and worked with me for the past 18 years. They have literally been involved in my son's education from the time he was 1.5 years, because Child Find covers 0 to 3. They helped us access what he needed then, helped us access the right preschool, provided supports all the way through elementary, middle, and high school. And so there's a whole lot of people here that I owe an extreme amount of gratitude to. And those of you who know, you know if you were one of those many people in the minor metropolis it took to help my son become the young man he is becoming. But thank you. Thank you for being a part of his journey. Thank you for being a part of my family's journey. And he'll continue to be a part of this district through transitions now that he's met his graduation requirement for the next 2 years. So by the time we're done, District 49 will have partnered with my family for 20 years to help my son become who he's meant to be. And so thank you for all of that.
Director DeVola.
All right, so graduation season is over. I did enjoy the hustle and the bustle of it, though. Honored to attend 4 graduations this year, Liberty Tree Academy, Falcon High School, Sand Creek High School, and P-TECH. And it's amazing to see the achievements and accomplishments that our students had. And I also got to see and congratulate former students that I had in 5th grade. One of them was at Sand Creek High School graduation, and I got to see her and shake her hand after the program, and she remembered me, which was great. I also want to note how every teacher from preschool until 12th grade are a part of every senior's success And I want to thank every single teacher who has taught any of the graduates this year from preschool all the way up, because you don't know the impact that you might have had in kinder or second grade or fifth grade that propelled that student towards where they're at. Also, I heard that Read Camp is going very well. Students are filling in those gaps, and I wanted to give a shout out to Yuki for working tirelessly with our most naive learners and doing a great job. Lisa Fillo told me all about how awesome you are, so thank you for everything that you do for our kids.
Thank you. I attended 5 graduations this season. Spring Studio, Patriot High School, Vista Ridge, Falcon, Banning Lewis Preparatory Academy, as well as the homeschool advancement ceremony. The homeschool advancement ceremony was a little bittersweet because there were a lot of people, and I'd like to get more information about this. They were a little upset that it wasn't continuing the supports through high school, and I know we might have a lot of crossover, but it's good to kind of communicate why things are done the way they are done. We had a little bit of a difficult situation, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, one of our Vista graduates, a week after graduation, was killed in a motorcycle accident. And my heart breaks for that family that just went through the joy of graduation and had to bury their son. I had to miss the P-Tech graduation, so I missed out on this year's batch of lizards. And I wanted to thank Jamie Lynn for accepting the graduates. I also wanted to thank Director Heil for covering the SEAC meeting for me when they changed the date to conflict with a graduation. And there was a lot of highs during this season. My next door neighbors, their daughter, who I've known since she was a little girl, graduated from Banning Lewis Preparatory Academy, and I got to give her diploma. That was really exciting. So I'd like to wish Chris and Ashley Guido good luck as they move to another state now, and it was a joy to share in their celebration. I had to miss, like I said, two of the graduations because there was a family funeral in New Mexico. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are unpaid elected officials, and the pay for us is graduations. Visiting schools, especially elementary schools, and watching our students thrive is our payment. I went to all of the 3.75 events, and it's interesting, something Jamie Lynn said. There were teachers they honored that were their first grade teachers or their fifth grade teachers. They honored their parents, they honored their pastors, they honored youth leaders, they honored a whole bunch of people as contributing to their success. And the goal graduation, I'm going to touch on because it'll also have to do with the resolution that we worked on as a board last year. And there's nothing quite like a goal graduation. We had several of the kids there that were, like people always think of, they might put a certain thought process to an alternative high school. We had several students who were getting their associate's degrees before they got their high school diplomas. There were kids who got workforce certificates. There was a lot of babies and toddlers and a lot of joy, and it's just such an enthusiastic crowd. I wanted to thank Director Schmidt for coming this year, and also to thank the executive assistant to the board, Lynette, who also attended the goal graduation. And so it is just a wonderful event. They all are in their own special way, but goal has a special place in my heart. And then for administrative updates, just a couple of things. Jamie Lynn touched on Read Camp, and I was privileged to see a video of Officer Pratt reading The Wonky Donkey. And I want you to know, I think I have a new favorite book. And just the way you got the kids to participate with you is really, really wonderful. Another thing I wanted to touch on that I think is below the belt. We have a board member who has adopted several high needs kids. She did not know I was going to say this. And that there is someone under an assumed identity who likes to take shots at her children. And personally, I think that is really despicable and below the belt. And so these are my own personal opinions I'm sharing, but anyone, you could, if you want to know the definition of a coward, it's someone who goes after children. So we had another person at Public Forum who referenced also Bible verses, and tonight I was reflecting on Proverbs 9, verses 7 and 8. And I think that's all I have right now. So, we are on to action items. Can I get a motion for action item 7.1?
I move to approve the contracts to provide meals for the 25-26 school year between District 49 Nutrition Services and Banning Lewis Ranch Academy, Banning Lewis Preparatory Academy, Liberty Tree Academy, Mountain View Academy, Pikes Peak School of Expeditionary Learning, and Pioneer Technology and Arts Academy.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Can I get a vote, please?
Davala,
Aye.
Heil,
Aye.
Levere Wright,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye, and that one passes. Can I get a motion for action item 7.2?
I move to approve the policy and procedure review as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, Director Heil?
Yeah, so this came at us first on May 7th when we were dealing with a whole bunch of culture war stuff, and so I didn't give this as close a read as I would have otherwise. I'm comfortable with the edits that are presented, but in a closer read, I have a concern about this clause here that discusses how marijuana is in sort of a quasi-legal state. And my concern is that there are, marijuana derivatives, but also, since this has been updated probably, hallucinogens have been added to that category, where they are legal in Colorado, but not necessarily federally. And I don't think we want our students coming into contact with adults who are using mushrooms or anything like that. So my question is the language that follows there sufficient to capture that, or should we as a board task the administration after we approve this as presented? Should we task administration to come back to us with modified language around that?
It's a good question because there is that gray area when you get to marijuana, because it's legal in the state of Colorado. It is still not legal at a federal level. But I don't know if we necessarily, if you're proposing that we list what is acceptable or what is not acceptable.
I just want to make sure that the language would capture that we are also concerned about marijuana derivatives and hallucinogens.
And I would like input from the superintendent, and if needed, from our attorney as well.
My general response, and I was not prepared for this specific topic, but my general response is that we would be wise to continue to rely on the legal definition. I think where we create liability and vulnerability is if we improvise or just create our own one-off interpretation. As an example, I would not want to reference peyote in this policy, even though I know there are some gray areas related to use of that for cultural or religious purposes. I wouldn't put that into our policy. I would trust what the law says about the policy. I think the 4 criteria listed here, excuse me, I'm going to open this up. The 4 criteria listed here seem pretty reasonable criteria, and I will. Are you also moving it?
Yeah, and essentially that's my question. Do these 4 criteria give us enough of a basis that that we can count on those being included or not?
I'll go ahead and read the 4 criteria. Number 1, the employee has a current and valid prescription for the drug or the drug is sold over the counter. Number 2, the drug is used or possessed for the purpose for which it was prescribed or sold over the counter. Number 3, the drug is used or possessed at the dosage prescribed or recommended. And number 4, the drug is used or possessed consistent with the safe and efficient performance of the employee's job duties.
And so in this case, it would seem that the first 3 criteria are fine for these, and so it would only be the 4th criteria that could stop somebody.
So Brad Miller speaking. I think item 4 is adequate to protect us in the case of overuse or misuse of something that might not be controlled, because this is a broad enough definition to explain that if an adult isn't safe to be performing their duties, that it's covered here. And we'll have to, as we've used in the parlance recently on other things, go on a case-by-case basis.
Any other discussion? Director Leverrier, were you going to say something?
I was just thinking the things he's bringing up would still be qualified as over-the-counter drugs, right? Psilocybin would still be if it's now over. I have no idea because I.
Yeah, so
I
that would
didn't
be
do
the
that stuff,
that
but
would
right.
be the concern exactly. So it's
So-
sold over the counter, so it meets the first couple of criteria. If they're using it at a recommended dosage, that would
Right.
that would also be okay. So only the 4th one then would stop it, where we would determine that it's not safe for
Mr.
their.
Heil, I'm going to retract a little bit of what I just said, because those 4 criteria only pertain, as I'm reading this now, to prescription or over-the-counter drugs. And so some of the things that you think you might have been describing as unregulated or outside of that framework aren't directly addressed by those 4 items. And so I can look deeper. Neither Peter or I were ready to sort of engage at this level here.
Yeah, and I think at this point, I was just thinking that we might, as a board, task you guys to look into that deeper.
You know, I think that's a valid point because, like, for instance, if you take marijuana, which is now over the counter, what is the dosage? Do we want somebody in transportation? I mean, just things that are worth discussing. So I actually agree that this might be worthy of another look before we move it forward.
Well, no, I think Mike's point was pass it as is and task them, right? So pass this so that we have the ability to do the testing, and in addition, task them to ensure that things like psilocybin are covered under this policy as well, that we have that protection to be able to test in addition. Now, I will say the transportation example, if you have a CDL, you can't be using marijuana. So it doesn't matter that it's legal in the state of Colorado. There are still some jobs that require licensure that you'll lose your ability to be able to have that job anymore if you use. It doesn't really matter if it's legal. Military is another one. Absolutely anybody in the military takes that stuff and they get called on a P test, they're out of the military. So I didn't want anybody to think that there isn't a way that we can hold bus drivers accountable. There 100% is, because their additional licensure requires it. But I think Mike's point is, what do we think about passing this so that they have the power to do the testing before this next school year starts, to make sure all that green is in there, and task the superintendent and attorney to look into how to make sure that these other kind of quasi situations that have been created by the distinctions in federal and state law are also covered.
Director Davola?
So I would be in favor of that as well. So if you want to call for consensus, I would say yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Can I get a vote?
Dvola,
Aye.
Heil,
Aye.
Leverrier,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye. And that passes.
And that's my next
And then-
question, is should you ask for consensus to do the tasking now as well?
Do we have a consensus then to task the superintendent and the attorney to work on improving that language for some of the issues that were brought up tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm usually really willing to take an abstract tasking, but I have very little idea what you're asking. So
Well,
can we talk a little bit more?
What
'Cause
we're talking about is Brad mentioned some of this verbiage when he did the second read, that it could use more clarity. So what I think we're looking at is those 4 items. Am I correct, Mr. Miller?
So what I understand this to be is just a follow-up inquiry as to whether the language in that paragraph followed by the 4 items is comprehensive and will capture for our needs the ability to ensure that we have a safe workforce that's not under the control of some substance that they ought not to be, and we're going to figure out if there's any further things that we need to put into this policy to protect us. And we'll get going on that and turn it around quickly, and the response may be, we're good.
That's it.
And if the board agrees, I think it would be helpful if we defined what we mean in the first sentence of the second paragraph. It says illicit drugs as defined in law. I think we need to define what law. Are we talking about the DEA schedule? Are we talking about, there are multiple laws, and so we probably should land on one. I'm likely, since it's the agency tasked with this, to bring you back the DEA, because that schedule would, I just pulled it up, it has 7 pages single spaced, so it would cover many of the substances that might be.
Well, I think basically you're looking at, our issue is because Colorado law is different than federal law, so things that are considered illicit federally are no longer considered illicit at the state. So the simple fix, but that's what you guys are tasked to figure out with later, might simply refer to federal law and therefore negate. So it doesn't mean people can't do what they want to do in their own private time when they're not on our pay and they're not working with our kids, but when they show up to work, federal law in terms of regulation applies. But I don't know, because that's what they have to figure out.
Yeah, and the advantage to that, too, is if there's a change in federal law, we're already covered. Director Heil, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the second paragraph before the 4 conditions does call out specifically the conflict in state and federal law on marijuana. And so, yeah, it's just a question of should we call out, marijuana and others, or, just in order to make sure that that we're calling out that it's not just marijuana that is subject to this conflict.
Thank you, that is helpful. I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, can I get a motion for action item 7.3?
I move to approve the revisions for policy GBGI.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, can I get a vote?
Devala.
Aye.
Heil.
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye, and that passes. Can I get a motion for action item 7.4?
I move to approve the 25-26 presented budget.
Second.
Director Schmidt?
Yeah, I just want to, again, thank you, Rebecca, for taking the time to discuss the budget and for explaining interfund borrowing. I like the fact that the student count will be conservative to avoid any shortfalls. And that's it. Thank you.
Director Heil?
I would also like to thank Ms. Brooks. We are a district that prides itself on its transparency, and you have ramped it up significantly. I don't think we've ever had this many documents in the packet. I think that some of these things have been available on our website for the intrepid hunter, but it's all right here in front of the public, and a lot of great information. I learned some things, so thank you.
Director DeVola?
Yeah, I just wanted to second that. I did like the level of scrutiny, I guess, that you put into this, and then being able to put it out to the public in more of a way that people can understand it is very helpful. So thank you for the hard work, because that's a lot of documents that I don't ever want to have to deal with in my career.
Okay, no other comments? Can I get a vote?
Devala.
Aye.
Heil.
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye, and that passes. Can I get a motion for action item 7.5?
I move to approve the interfund borrowing resolution as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I just have one comment about the literal interpretation. I think it was Lynette. I said, oh, this is robbing from Peter or borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And when I used that common phrase, it didn't even occur to me that somebody might think of Peter Hiltz and Paul Anderson. But anyway, if there's no further discussion, can I get a vote?
Devala.
Aye.
Heil.
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye, and that passes. Can I get a motion for action item 7.6?
I move to approve the use of beginning fund balance resolution as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Can I get a vote?
Devala.
Aye.
Heil.
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye, and that passes. And we are on to discussion items. And first is 9.1, the Communications Department Performance Report. Hey, I see something shiny.
Yeah. Good evening, members of the board. David Nancaro, Director of Communications for D49. Pulling up my presentation here. Thank you for bearing with us as we've sorted out a few tech difficulties here tonight. Pleased to be talking with you here tonight. A bit to cover. We'll go through some of our traditional metrics, as well as some updates from the communications office, starting off with what I like to talk about a lot lately, and that is the COSPRA Awards. So COSPRA is an acronym for Colorado School Public Relations Association, and that is the collection of districts around the state who do the work that we do in the communications office. And every year there is an awards season. District 49's communication team submitted a number of different pieces of work over the past year, and I am pleased. And so, again, the criteria that you see on your screen is what we were judged for, and I am pleased to share the results. We had 3 of our top performing pieces include excellence in the publications and digital media for our video team, 2 excellence awards for Anchor for Life Serial Drive at Remington Elementary School that was produced over here by Greg Mueller, and as well as Woodman Hills Elementary School Crossing Guard, which was produced by Kristen Sokolowski, who you'll also see here with us in our board meetings. But thank you. And the big one goes to Discover D49, the magazine, which was presented with the COSPRA Golden Achievement Award for Community Outreach and Public Engagement. So I brought my visual aid. Here is our award. In addition, we had 6 individual other awards in the categories of writing, photography, and video with honorable mentions at the last round. So it was an exciting time for our team, which represented D49 very well at the awards ceremony, which was held last week. So thank you very much for letting me share that exciting news with you. A quick look at our key 3 metrics from the last time that we met are listed here. We continue to strive for producing original stories, that is, stories that have either been received as requests to the communications office or that we have enterprised in our conversations with folks around the district as we do our regular check-ins at schools and departments across the district. So we're looking for original stories in this metric, and then we try to stay on top of how quickly we turn those stories around. We want them to remain timely, so we track that metric as well. And then we also balance our coverage in between our zones and departments and district-wide. So that is a quick look at how we did this springtime. A few highlights from the spring. We produced our 8th issue of Discover D49, the magazine. We had 956 podcast downloads, which is an all-time high for us. We are seeing some improvement in our Instagram key metrics in terms of reach, interactions, and follows. A lot of those metrics we look at that really sort of tell us how well we're doing in terms of producing the kinds of things that people want to see. And so especially when you see interactions up a whopping 655%, I have looked at that about 10 times, and that's data presented by the Meta Suite, which manages both Facebook and Instagram. But what I would say to that is that we saw a lot of traction in people beginning to like our content and comment on our content and share our content. And so for us, that is encouraging for us to kind of take a look at what people are responding to and continuing to produce content that goes that direction. But largely to say when we see these things climbing, that is saying that people in our community who are tracking D49 are liking what we're doing. So that's sort of the short version of how I would explain some of those metrics. We talked about graduation season. Wanted to point out that the comms team attended as many or the same number of graduation ceremonies that you did to report on those and cover those with both photography and some writing. What we also do is prepare those presentations for our website and social media, but then all of the photographs that we take, we upload to a website called Flickr. And we create albums of basically, we take the card out of the camera, we stick it into the laptop, and we upload every shot. And so that means we can share those links to those graduation ceremonies then to the families and students and give them another chance to see what we've done. Now, they may not be the perfect, edited, retouched, working on the light. You'll see some blurry shots in those albums, but we're happy to say that we produced 10 individual albums and had more than 17,000 views on those albums at the time that I gathered this data. So we're really excited to be able to share that, and we think that our folks, our families and students are really responding to it well, because they can share that with family members who couldn't make the event. So wanted to point that out a little bit. Communications pieces in the works right now this summer. The comms team is deep planning into the 25-26 school year for our major recurring projects. Also, we'll be looking at sort of our team segment plan, so that includes our broadcast and media, internal communications, digital communications, as well as our marketing and compliance pieces. So we'll be talking through some planning, getting ready to go for the next school year, which will be coming right around the corner. Briefly touching on digital accessibility, that is a commitment that D49 Communications Office and Department is working with to stay in compliance with both federal and state regulations and expectations for digital compliance. And so that means the communications that we're putting out can be accessed by everyone. And so we have spent the past year or so working on our first phase of that rollout. We will begin our next phase coming up with the new school year as we begin our kind of expand our reach and training and information to our school campuses. And then beyond that, we'll be talking about a little bit more about social media accessibility and some of the things that we need to be thinking about moving forward to maintain that commitment and value all people. We will be doing some learning this summertime with school public relations. There's a conference that 4 of us will attend. It is the NSPRA conference, and this is really our largest opportunity to learn, network, and do best practices with other school communications professionals. And with that, I would open it up to any questions that I might be able to answer.
Director Heil?
So first of all, one of your metrics you're tracking is the timely delivery, and I have to say, I'm at a graduation, and then we've got about an hour and a half before the next one starts, and I'm already seeing social media posts of the previous graduation before the next one starts. That is an incredible turnaround. So very well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I was wondering if you could share with us the link to those Flickr, because I did not see an announcement. I only use Facebook for social media, so
100%.
If you could share that a little wider, I think we could get a heck of a lot more views.
Very good observation, and I would be happy to do that. Thank you.
That's all I had.
Yeah, I think it went to all of the
Director
seniors'
Libby Wright?
parents.
Okay. Director Olivia Wright?
Commenting, I think they sent the Flickr to all of the seniors' parents, because I didn't get it as a board member, I got it as a mom, even though my child chose not to walk because being in a crowd would be the 7th level of hell for him. But then I had, friends of mine who had kids in his class sending me pictures of me up on stage with them and stuff. So, but I'm pretty sure it was sent out to all of the families predominantly, rather than just posted. The
Correct.
whole album posted anywhere.
We generally consider them to be our key audience with that particular effort, but your observation is absolutely valid and correct, and we'd be happy to help spread the word.
Director DeVola?
Yeah, your communications team does a phenomenal job of keeping people in the loop of with everything that's going on. And I do have to say that I have had people in District 20 who complain about their communication with the weather alerts and things, and you guys are the gold standard for how well you guys communicate your weather closures and the reasons why. Most of them just say, we're closed. So the fact that you say why is probably multiple people, but good job to the whole team.
Thank you very much. And if I may, I went back a couple of slides to really kind of drill down, I think, onto the point that you're making. And it is a process in terms of communications and decision making and getting the word out that goes back years, that started some time ago, and that as we have continued to move it forward, I think we've continued to improve on that. It's a very smooth, well-oiled, tuned system. And what I wanted to observe here is that our top post for the spring is the one that I'm looking to. It's on my left. It has the District 49 logo at the bottom. And this was related to a very challenging weather call that happened. There were late things happening. It was a very difficult call to make. And Superintendent Hiltz, after talking with me, we talked a little bit, and he put together an explanation, an apology. And this hit 49,000 total reach. And what was also interesting to me that I made, and this is very indulgent to me, so thank you. We saw this being reposted on other districts' pages. And we saw this being reposted as this is the way that this should be done. And so that is a testament to an established process that continues to roll through and that we continue to innovate and stay on top of. And so I think we're seeing the results of that.
Yeah, I had a coworker who came in and said, why can't they do it like D49? And she had the posts.
So that's high praise. I appreciate that.
So it was pretty awesome. I do have one question, if I may. Sorry. For the magazines,
yes.
Where does the funding come from for the magazines?
The magazine is a combination of advertising budget, and then it is also supported by sponsorships that we receive and solicit throughout the years to major partners. Now, you will see a recurring group that appear in the magazine. So Sentinel is one that comes to mind immediately. Stratus IQ, which is a good partner of ours, and so again, DLR, yep. And so None is another partner that has been also a sponsor. And so we continue that sponsorship ask. We continue to spread that out. Because with mailers, that is actually a very expensive proposition for anything, if it's the size of a postcard or the size of a poster. The key is getting it into all of those mailboxes, but that's a commitment that has been made with this particular item, again, years ago, which we previously produced what was called the D49 dispatch. And that looked like a newspaper, sort of a folded tabloid, and the magazine now just sort of builds on that. So this is another process that we have been working on and producing for some time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Which represents some really good financial stewardship.
Thank you.
And I did hear from several parents that they were downloading their students' photos from graduation on top of the 200,000 that their individual families took.
Right.
And so it really is a great community benefit to have that available. And back to even the weather closures, we recently had an incident, which is it's something people don't understand. If I'm wrong on my geography, we are 132 square miles. I think I'm right on that. But we had an incident where Highway 24 was closed at Constitution. It was closed. They had semi-trucks jackknifing off and going off the road, and it was really dangerous out there. And Powers was wet. And so people think, what is wrong with you? Why did you do a closure when Powers is fine? And I drove here and there. And so they don't understand the weather system here and how it can be impacted in different parts of our district. Another thing it impacts is charter schools, because we provide the food to charter schools. So if the main district is closed, the charter schools are not going to be getting their food. And so that's where it's tough sometimes to make those calls. We don't always make the right calls, but I'll tell you the truth, most of the time we get it right. And the communications team does a great job of getting that word out when there is that type of situation. And as I have shared before, I had a friend in District 11 who wanted a copy of Discover magazine and was really impressed with the content of it. So just kudos and well-deserved awards, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. And I would just be remiss if I didn't again say that the weather call in particular is an enormous team event that is fed and sourced by people who are on the scene, our crews who are driving those roads, the ones that have to get up early to make sure that our campuses are safe, seeing what the current conditions are doing. We are dependent on all of that verified eyeball, boots on the ground data that then puts us in a position to share that information. And so it is so many people up at all hours of the night, really, committed to doing the right thing and the safe thing for everybody at District 49.
And now our buses are off of 24. So if 24 is closed, not a single bus can get anywhere, no matter what's happening on anywhere else. And usually when 24 closes pretty frequently from Constitution to Lyman, and when that happens, usually Woodman also becomes a parking lot between Falcon proper and Golden Sage, where the dip is. And so if you live out there, you're not going anywhere. There isn't another way to get in or out because no other road gets there. So they need to turn on the TV and look at the pictures from the cameras, and then they'll kind of understand there isn't any way you could get in. Anybody who lives in Falcon who teaches in town isn't getting to work because you can't get out of the neighborhood.
Yes, indeed.
But also on those Facebook posts, the other thing that isn't shown but also is pretty huge when you read them is the level of commentary and interaction.
Agreed.
And there's a lot of community interaction back and forth, and you see conversations shift and change. And a lot of support for the district ultimately in the end. And so we've done such a good job of building that relationship with our community that the people who've been involved for a long time often advocate for us. That post gives them the opportunity to do that. We provide the information, and then people from all over the community chime in and say, well, let me tell you what I'm seeing down my street. We can't even do X, Y, and Z. And so I really appreciate. And so that interaction is huge too, and the ability to do that, because some places turn the comments off so that no one can comment positive or negative, and we've had a policy to not do that on our posts, and I think in the long term it's paid off. In the short term sometimes it's painful, but in the long term it pays off. So thank you for continuing that transparency and communication.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next we are up to item 9.3, the Social Studies Task Force. And did I miss one? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. 9.2, Applied and Advanced Learning Performance Update.
Don't be scared.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Hiltz. I'm Sean Norman, Director of Applied Advanced Learning. Tonight, I want to introduce you to the team that works behind the scenes to support our incredible educators and administrators in preparing our students for the future. We are the Career and College Department of District 49, and our primary goal is to serve as a resource and a partner to our schools. We empower our teachers, counselors, principals with the tools, training, and frameworks they need to guide students towards meaningful career and college experience and success. Our team collaborates directly with school staff to build and enhance capacity for delivery of impactful experiences. We support them with implementing career and technical education pathways such as construction and culinary programming to help them integrate work-based learning experiences such as internships and apprenticeships into the student experience. Furthermore, we provide critical infrastructure and guidance to schools to expand college access. We work hand in hand with counselors and advisors to streamline the concurrent enrollment process, which includes Career Start, to make it easier for students to access free college credit. From developing individual career plans to accessing college scholarship opportunities, our goal is to equip schools and their teams with everything they need to foster student success. So with that being said, our team is here tonight to present more about how we support our schools and these vital efforts. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shonda Green. I am the Concurrent Enrollment Coordinator for the district. I wanted to start with the graph you are very familiar with. We show it every year just to give an idea of where we started and how far we've come. One of the things that we're really excited to see is that next fall we're anticipating 16% of all high school students will be in one college class or more in the fall semester. That's the highest we've ever had so far. It's going to keep growing, and it's really exciting for that. So one of the things I wanted to mention is, why do we do CE, right? Concurrent enrollment. And first, we have to, right? It's a legislative requirement in the state of Colorado. But for those of us that are helping the students, creating the courses, staffing them, it's more about those first 3 rocks that you see up there. So we're providing those exceptional choices, firm foundations, and then launching successful students. And every year when we have graduation, we get to see how many students are leaving us fully prepared and partially through a degree program already. So we want to be able to continue to do that. With the growth that we're seeing, that growth means there are going to be challenges, and then we need to be more creative with the solutions that we have for those challenges. So we are slowly, maybe not so slowly, running out of space to be able to offer classes at the level that they're needed within the district. So we've had to get pretty creative. We do have, and I've mentioned before, live remote learning courses. So students can take a class online, virtually, live from another school where other students are learning and hearing it in person. And so that works when their bell schedules align. They're able to do that. It's one resource. We've started offering more hybrid classes, which means that typically college classes are 2 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. So if we offer it as a hybrid, and not all classes can, but those that can, we can do one class on Mondays and a whole different class on Wednesdays. And so that's one of the ways that we're kind of juggling some of our space issues. We are also looking at ways to be more efficient with what we have available to us. So we've brought on some digital resources to be able to manage concurrent enrollment, and that will be going live in July. And this will free up a little bit more time for every person involved in concurrent enrollment, especially those in the schools who will be able to have a little more time to talk to students with that leap to post-secondary, where we've done so much of the work for them through concurrent enrollment. Then they're missing a little piece of how those things work, so they'll have a little more time to prep them for that time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. What we can see here is we do have a majority of our classes are on our campuses. We are offering as many as we can. We look at things like what courses will be most utilized. So what will be a wide variety for most students, if we can get staffing, if there's materials or textbooks needed. So we offer them on our campuses as much as we can, so they also remain in that high school environment, right? But as you can see, our off-campus is starting to rise pretty well too. And that's because at some point, there are courses that students need that we just can't offer in the building, and or like Career Start, which is a career and technical program, and they go 5 days a week out to the college. So those are the different things that we've got there. One more thing. Oh, I'll get to that in a second. So the final thing I didn't mention about our creative resources is we've started offering summer courses for concurrent enrollment. This semester is the very first time, or this summer, I should say, we have an 8-week general chemistry class being offered. Students, there's 15 of them, started last week, and this is the end of their second week, and everyone is still showing up. Summer. You should see some social media posts coming out real soon with some exciting pictures about that, so it's really exciting. And let's see. I think that's about it for me. I wanted to show you one last thing. We have a, wrong button, chemistry course, much like our summer one, but this one was at Falcon High School over the last school year with Mrs. Duran. It's a CSU Pueblo course rather than Pikes Peak State College, but here you can see the students wearing their protective equipment, getting into their lab, and so I think sometimes it's fun just to see what the students have going on. Thank you all. I will turn it over to Mary Crisco.
Thanks, Shonda. Hi, thank you for having us here to present our programs. We're really excited about what we do. What I wanted to show you on this particular slide is the direct correlation between CTE courses and graduation rates across the state. Every single year, we prepare a report that gets uploaded. Unfortunately, our data is about 2 years behind by the time they get it processed, but this graph is showing you that the longer students stay engaged with CTE courses, the higher the graduation rate goes for those students. Whether they're just accessing one class or whether they become a participant, which is defined as a 1-year enrollment in a CTE course, or a concentrator, which is 2 years or more within the same career pathway. We're now seeing 97% graduation rates with CTE connections. So it's very valuable for the students. They're talking about industries they're interested in. They should be picking their classes based on their ICAP data and things that they've identified as being interesting to them, so that teachers can help them explore those careers while still being in high school. So we're seeing a lot of success with CTE across the state. As a part of our career and technical education, we offer industry credentials. These are industry certifications that are determined valuable by industry partners and the Colorado Workforce Development Program. There's a few hundred different credentials. This year, as you can see, this is just a history of how we've increased our students accessing industry credentials. This year we had 350 students get industry credentials, and in District 49 that also means that they've met mastery for their graduation requirements. So some students who may not meet mastery through a state test or an ACT or SAT, a national test, or an AccuPlacer, may find that they can meet that mastery through an industry certification. So again, industry is seeing the investment that District 49 has made in industry certifications, and because of that, they're also seeing our high quality programs, and they're coming to the table to partner with us. So it's really exciting. We've had a really exciting couple of weeks. Falcon High School and the new automotive program that started this year, we are in the process of signing a contract with Hunter. Hunter is one of the leading automotive industry equipment providers, and they would like to partner so that they can become an actual satellite training facility for adults. They will train around the high school schedule and breaks. It will be open for our instructors to take the courses, as well as possibly some of our students to take the advanced courses. And in what they're doing for us in return is that they're providing industry equipment. for our students to train on. And we will be one of the first high schools to have the ADOS system, which is an alignment system. The students will be able to get certified in this. It's a laser alignment system, so they'll learn how to use lasers that will go all the way around the vehicle to have their vehicles aligned. They are going to be working on a business program plan with the business department out at Falcon High School, because there will be some services provided to the community that they'll be able to access services for their vehicles there as well. That's going to be part of their fundraising. And so we'll have a lot of industry support with that. In addition, our CTE programs have been so well noted that we were granted this year an innovation grant for next year to start a medical assistant program at Vista Ridge High School. We are really looking forward to this. They had $4.6 million worth of requests, and they had $2.6 million to give out. So we were really excited that they felt what we had proposed was going to be innovative enough to allow us to start this program. So we are very excited about moving in that direction. And then with that, with the increase in our certifications, I wanted to highlight, because we've talked a little bit about Falcon High School, what's going on at Vista Ridge High School. So I want to highlight just a couple of quick things. We had students for the first time at Spring Studio and PPEC get certifications in pre-engineering and robotics, and even one drone license. And then we also had at Sand Creek High School, we have 3 programs there that work closely together: manufacturing, engineering, and computer science. Of that program, we had 90 of their students qualified for the Autodesk Fusion 360 certification. So they have a lot of students in their program, and they're really interested in moving forward. And so I just wanted to highlight them very, very quickly, because they had students who have interned at places like Microchip, Collins Aerospace, Jackson Engineering, and Integris, a lot of other industries locally. But then they also have students matriculating and going on from their programs to places like Pikes Peak State College, Savannah College, School of Mines, Stafford Engineering, and Lincoln Tech. And then the 2 students that are focused here, again, they had probably 20 or 30 kids that they provided me information on, and I could only pick 2. But Haley will be staying local. She's going to be working at El Paso County Public Works through our partnership with them, and she will be working on her American Welding Society credential. So we're going to have a few female welders actually come out of this program. And then Alex, he interned at Jackson Engineering working in the welding, and he will be going into an apprenticeship to continue with his AWS credential. So he will also come out as a welder. And there were so many more. We could come up here and I could probably tell you about students from every single building who are just really excelling in our CTE programs. Thank you. Kelsey.
Hello, everybody. I am the Choice and Success Program Manager. So I oversee all of the work-based learning experiences and ICAP data for the district. Going into our 4th year, we realized how important it is to expose students to all the different career pathways that are offered out there. Once you talk to students, you'll know they know 4 career pathways, and it's usually what their parents do: a teacher and a police officer. So this year, we had many events. At Sand Creek, we took all the 9th graders on a site visit that matched their ICAP. So students were able to tour the facility, talk to the industry partners, and just learn more about that career pathway. Also at Sand Creek, we hosted mock interviews with all the seniors and industry partners. We hosted a Power Forward Day with the Power Zone, where multiple students, actually all students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, got to interact with industry guest speakers. We hosted a Shark Tank event with our students and industry partners, where students got to present their projects to industry partners. we changed Falcon's mini courses to Career Expo Day, where students, 6th and 7th grade, got to go to guest speakers, interact with those industry professionals, and all of the 8th graders got to go on a site visit that matched their ICAP. We hosted draft days where students got to interview with industry partners in hopes to get a job, an internship, apprenticeship. And so this slide will show you all of our data from guest speakers to internships that we were able to do this year. Next. Thank you. And then this is just some pictures here. You can see our students are in their Shark Tank event, talking to the industry professionals. And then again, here are all of our industry professionals that came to our draft day. We have the best industry partners and partnerships, so we are so thankful for that. This year, we were able, from year 1 to now, we were able to increase our ICAP conversations by 55%. So with year 1, 30% of our students were having those ICAP conversations to 80%. So I know when I say this, I am not only saying this for myself, but the Choice and Success Advisors. This has been such a rewarding job to see students gain confidence in themselves, gain confidence in talking to industry partners, and seeing them get placed in opportunities that will change their lives have been so rewarding. So with our program coming to an end, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for these last 4 years, and I'm so thankful I got to manage such an amazing program. Thank you.
All right, we're happy to field any questions you might have.
Board, any questions or comments? Director Davola?
First of all, with the concurrent enrollment, I would have totally taken advantage of summer concurrent enrollment as a student. That is brilliant, by the way, because that is, you wouldn't think that high school students would want to do that, but if they can get college credits without having to pay for it, that's a big plus. Then also with the 2 students who were recognized on the slide for the internships, Haley and Alex, that's such a great accomplishment for them. My husband is a welder, and man, if he had had this program when he was in school, he wouldn't have had the issues he's had to become a welder at the age of 50 versus when he was a kid, because he was very interested in all of that back then. But there was not something like this. So I am just so grateful that we're providing this to kids. Good options and awesome work to all of you.
Thank you.
Director Heil?
I don't have any questions. I'm absolutely a fan of your programs. Particularly, I love the concurrent enrollment. My daughter earned a number of credits there. And the great thing is not only are you providing a superior education, even if a student never goes on to earn their degree, they still had a more rigorous and more beneficial education in that course than they would have in an equivalent high school course. But yeah, being able to save those parents money and going out there to earn those courses. I mean, college is obscenely expensive, and it's just really great that we're doing everything we can to help them out. And you know, the fact that we're running into capacity issues is a great problem to have. I love that you guys are getting the word out there. Students are getting engaged, and they're signing up for this stuff. I also really love the summer programs. As a student in high school, I actually took summer classes on purpose, and that was actually really great because I got to see my friends for just 4 hours of the day, and then since we were already there, together we could go off and enjoy shenanigans, right? So the fact that these are college level courses is it really levels it up. So I also wanted to shout out this slide here that's got the photographs of Haley and Alex. We actually got to meet Alex and Haley's teacher at the D49. I forget what we're calling that series of community outreach. Engage 49. We had the CTE event for Engage 49, and they were there and they were featured speakers. And what a wonderful event! I think that when we're engaging our community, that is one that we probably want to keep coming back to, because we're going to have new high school students and parents who are going to want to come and learn more about it. And it's just, there's so many programs to learn about. Great opportunity to get the word out. Thank you.
And I do want to point out as well, too, is that a lot of students through current technical education earn college credits. Just today alone, I submitted 32 requests for 100 college credit hours to PPSC for CTE students. So we're continuing to kind of blur the lines here between all these opportunities, so kids have all these rigorous experiences here and pathways to success. And I have to admit, too, the summer CE programming that we're doing, Ms. Green and I were there this morning. It was incredible to see all the smiling faces, and as a bonus, they got to do a chem experience where they lit me on fire, too. So.
Well, and I just have to say, as the only board member who's made every Engage 49 presentation, no, seriously. At the last one, I was really glad to have Director Heil and Director DeVola there. And while Director Heil was talking to the teacher, I was talking to Alex. And so I just want you to know that was an amazing presentation you did at Vista Ridge. I think that the parents in our district are thrilled when our students can earn their associate's degree, and just even calculating how much money it saves our D49 families. It's really amazing, but it also gives students the opportunity to try on a few hats to see if it's the right way. And then, of course, I have to mention that my little second cousin was one of the first D49 students through P-TECH to get her associate's degree in engineering before she got her high school diploma. Hello, Jasmine. And so, and also she used to have, I just was reminded, and I meant to mention that she may or may not have had Director DeVola as her 5th grade teacher. And so it's kind of neat how it went full circle, because she was also a student at James Irwin. So I think what you are providing to this community is absolutely amazing. So I'd just like to give you a heartfelt thank you for everything you're doing for our students. Anything else?
Thank you for all of us here.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, close enough. Okay, now we are on to item 9.3, the Social Studies Task Force update, and Vice President DeVola is going to be presenting on this.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that has all the board members had the opportunity to read the background and rationale, or for the public's sake, should I go through it all?
I would go ahead and go through it.
All right, cool. So background and rationale. So the Social Studies Task Force had their first meeting on May 27th. There's representation from every high school in each zone for our district schools. So after discussion, it was clear that the task force as a whole was not in favor of condensing the materials into a one-year course, as we had previously discussed as a board, but were rather in favor of keeping the U.S. history course as a one-year course and keeping civics and government course as a semester or a full year course. There was some concern that if we want to add an action step component to the government/civics course, that there's not enough time to do this with the current courses. So that would be if we wanted them to do like a project where they needed to have some civil engagement. That would be something that the current social studies teachers said, as it's built right now, they don't have enough time in their schedule to do something that would be a hands-on type of activity. So if we want to keep that in mind as well. And, let's see here, what else do we have? Oh, it was also brought up that world history is also very important and should also be required district-wide. There's some discussion around that. We all agreed that there's definitely inconsistencies across the district in materials used for the courses, the time frame in which students take the courses, and the requirements for graduation. So as a board, we would need to talk and decide if we want to align these three things and what we want to require. Big questions, whether we want to continue with our initial idea of a one-year all-encompassing course or leave it as two separate courses. require the same curriculum or materials used for the courses, or let each school decide what they want to use. And then whether world history will also be required. This is the things that we're going to discuss. So if we wanted to break each apart, that might help. So let's start with, do we want to leave it as an all-encompassing year-long course, or do we want to go with the suggestion of having it 2 separate courses? Do we want to have it 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, half year, or do we want to have more discussion with the task force on what that would look like?
Director Levere Wright?
My personal thought is that I think we need significantly more understanding from the task force, and explicitly those who handle the transcripting and crediting. So not only the social studies teachers who are each going to be passionate about what their discipline is. I can tell you, I can give you 80 reasons why I think physics should be required in physical science as well, but would not ask to do that. But also because it is the school counselors who deal with what that looks like in transcripting and what it looks like in transfer. And those two things are incredibly important so if you think about the visual at Falcon High School's graduation, where they say, have all graduates stand. And then they say, those of you who were with us only for your senior year, sit. Now those who are with us just for junior and senior, sit. Now those who are just with us and they go all the way down to kindergarten, right? But by the time they get to 9th grade, there's a significant number of kids sitting. And the more things we put as specific requirement courses, the more difficult it becomes for those kids transferring in from other places to meet our graduation requirements. And that has some downstream effects. So a long time ago, District 49 used to require 28 credits for graduation because our high schools have 8-period schedules. The surrounding districts required 24 and a half. The board eventually moved to matching the 24 and a half to 25 that surrounding districts required because we were losing students junior and senior year because they could graduate on time if they transferred to D20 and D11 and couldn't graduate on time if they came to us. If you look at the number of kids who sat at Falcon High, each of those is a potential transfer student who could end up not coming to our district because they can't figure out a path to graduation on time to meet our requirements when they become too specified. And I don't have the correct answer to that, but the people who would have the answer and information about how to handle that would be the people who deal with all the kids who transfer in and out, which are the school counselors. So I think figuring out how much of your we require 3 credits of social studies to graduate. The only explicit requirement under the state of Colorado, and therefore under our graduation requirements, is that they have a civics, a mechanism to demonstrate civics. Different high schools meet that in different ways. At Falcon High, just because I've had 3 graduates there, they meet it through a half credit course called civics. But knowing how much of that 3 credits we can list as required explicit courses before it negatively impacts transfer students' ability to graduate and meet our graduation requirements, I think is an important factor in this decision making. Because we could hand it just to the social studies teachers and they could say, yes, we want 3 years required, students can do a 4th year optional, and we want world history, US history, and civics. If we have kids transferring from all over the country thanks to the military bases, and that's maybe 1/3 of the graduating class of Falcon High, and I'm assuming similar others, how does that impact those students' ability to meet that? How does it impact also the kids doing concurrent enrollment when it's usually the humanities that kids do first? They do their English classes and do some social studies credits as the kind of their foray into concurrent enrollment. Usually science and math are the ones that they explore last. They start them in English and then spread out into some of those other courses. So I think that would be important input.
Director DeVola, you wanted to answer that?
Yes. So the task force as a whole encompasses the people that you had just mentioned. So even with the counselors and the the ones who help with transcripts, etc., it was clear that not just a one-year course, but as it currently stands, it's a one-year course and a semester course, and the majority have it required already. That was my understanding. I bet Mr. Hiltz could help clarify that a little bit more, but that was just, let me say what you just said. So she had mentioned that it couldn't be a requirement if 30% of our students didn't graduate with it. There's discrepancies there that we're still in the path of researching, because every single school told us it was a requirement to graduate, and yet we have 30 students who are not. So there's some disconnect there, and we're trying to figure out what it is. But as of right now, most of our students graduate, or not most, but it's perceived that we would have that as a graduation requirement already, which is why we want to align. We can't move ahead as a task force unless we know that one question. Are we going to do this as a one-year all-encompassing course, or do we want to split it into two? We can't move forward without that information that I bring back to the task force.
Director Heil?
Yeah, so, and this is something I brought up the first time we talked about this too. When you take a course that's a year and a half and you condense it into 1 year, and then there were other things that were discussed that would be added in that aren't currently there. The end result is that you are losing something, right? And so to add to Marie's point about transfers, because I think you were mostly concerned about people who are transferring in that haven't had this course, I think we have a bigger problem of students who would be transferring out, and this class would not meet the standards in other states. And as a heavy military populated district, that would affect a lot of our students. So I think U.S. history as a one-year course is pretty much everywhere. I think U.S. government as a one-semester course is pretty much everywhere. I heard from Sand Creek essentially the same thing that you're saying here, that they require 1 year of U.S. history to graduate, and they take it in their junior year. They require 1 semester of U.S. government, and they take it in their senior year. And so that was the same requirements that I grew up with, and I feel like I'm well qualified to participate in the public discourse. So, I think that that's the right approach. I think if you start making it into 2 courses, you're going to lose some important stuff.
One thought I wanted to add in, my family briefly moved to Nevada when I was in high school. When I moved back, some of the credits that I received at Valley High School in Las Vegas they didn't convert to District 11. I don't know that we need to look at what we require or our course offerings, because in essence, we would have to get information from all 50 states to see what their requirements are. And I think there could be a workaround as far as a graduation requirement. So at this point, I don't know that we need to look at it from all 50 states and what their requirements are. Director Schmidt?
Yeah, I am always shocked at how much adults do not know about U.S. history and civics. For me, we need to have curriculum that's consistent throughout the district, and we need to give them as much of both as we can. We need to give these students the ability to self-govern. That means they need to understand what the Republic is, how voting and the Electoral College work, and why it's so important to have 3 equal branches of government. I know that's covered a little bit in the younger grades, but it needs to be really described and covered really well in the high school. I would say 1 of each for sure. And I do think world history is also important, so again, that's going to kind of change a little bit there too. I don't think that curriculum should necessarily be a memorization of dates when things took place, but I do think that students should have an overall idea of when events took place and their meaning. So that might take a little bit longer than just 1 semester. So I'm going to say a little bit longer, and that's it.
And just one quick note that at the annual planning summit, this is one of the things that was moved forward by board consensus to look into this course. Director DeVola, you wanted to add something?
Yes, what I found very interesting with this whole process is that we realized that the time frame in which students take these courses varies dramatically in each of our schools, which causes problems when we are transferring from one school to the other within district. So if we could align ourselves district-wide on when these students are taking the courses, that would be really helpful. Because as of right now, we have some that are, the government and civics is a freshman course, and the U.S. history is a junior course, or there's a U.S. history as a sophomore course. So this is something that we need to really think about and see if we can align. And I'm also in favor of having the same materials for the courses across the district. Right now, some of them have textbooks, some of them are just using standards and pulling whatever materials they need to teach that standard. I think if we standardize it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm oh, you were going to add something? Okay, I was just going to say, the zones of innovation can be very productive, but if we are doing a graduation requirement, I also agree that we should standardize this across the district as if we make it a graduation requirement. And I also agree with you about the haphazard nature of, I always thought it was interesting that civics was a freshman course because I actually think that's a better senior course just before they become voters. So anyway, you were going to add something?
I appreciate the discussion, and I agree Jamie Lynn has represented it well. I also completely agree with the importance of learning from counselors. Aligning when we teach the courses is going to be critically important. I'm going to push back on the idea of aligning on curriculum, in part because multiple zones have just bought curriculum. And so who would we ask to get a refund, which they can't do? So there's a financial stewardship element to that. Maybe a mediating position would be to present back to the board what are the core documents in an American government course. Which Federalist paper is more important? Do we need to read the Virginia Declaration of Rights along with the bill? Right, there are specific historical documents that have great relevance for today, and so that might be on the American government side. That might be a way of unifying and getting the board's support for a unified district approach, because I don't know that it matters whether you read the Bill of Rights out of a Savas online curriculum or Apprentice Hall or some other curriculum provider, because the Bill of Rights should be the Bill of Rights. So there may be some room there for some retaining some curriculum independence and retaining some curriculum investment that we've already done. On the U.S. history side, I would argue even more strongly that it is just as important that we align our social studies curricula as that we align math and science and ELA. And so where a zone has committed to, and it happens to be more the case that they've chosen Savas as a social studies curriculum, I would like to preserve that alignment, because that alignment, how they talk about themes in history matters, how they organize when they talk about a historical era. Do they talk about people first, or geography, or the technological developments, or the political developments? That may increase student retention if there's some familiarity. So I just want us to be cautious about imposing a unilateral and universal, but I can guarantee you that the task force will say everything I just said with more varied perspective, and some will support centralization as long as it's their curriculum. Some will oppose it, no matter what curriculum, and I think that's a place where we'll have some good debate. But I'm actually really encouraged that we had, if you heard that date, May 27th, that's after graduations, that's right at the end of the school year, and we had good engagement, good participation. We're meeting again on July 31st for our next meeting.
That is true. I may or may not be able to come, which is not okay.
I'm going to call Mr. Doherty and see if Lori Thompson can sub for you that day as an instructional.
Well, I'm training, so I'm the trainer.
Yeah, So it is a challenge, and Mr. Smith is leading he is coordinating the meetings, and so I appreciate his leadership on that. He's aware of this potential conflict, but what I'm hearing from the board is we certainly want to be aligned on a year and a half a year for history and government. We are at least interested and probably lean toward making that civics requirement happen later in the high school sequence, and probably both of them. So for example, if we're having a world history and a U.S. history, put the world history first in the sequence and the U.S. history later. We're interested in a higher degree of alignment around standards and materials across the district. If not absolutely curriculum, certainly core documents, core materials, maybe even what I would call the core standards. Nobody teaches all of the standards. So are we okay if U.S. history ends in 1920? Are we okay if U.S. history starts in 1820? No and no. But the truth is sometimes we run out of school year before we run out of decades. And so we have to think about that in terms of the scope and sequence and the pacing. So I hear a real interest in respecting what these social studies professionals have to offer, continuing with the process, but already with some clarity about a year and a half a year, let's say it that way, a year and a half a year, later in the sequence, higher alignment across the district.
Yes. Director Olivia Wright?
And when you make it later, it makes it easier on some of your transfer students, which is the other piece on that. But then the other thing that I think is leading to the whole required conversation, because if you look at their graduation requirements, these things technically are not required. But what they do, having been through it at Falcon High with 3 different kids, is there is a standard sequence most students take. So when your sophomore kid rising into sophomore year comes home, they hand you their scheduling form, world history is already typed in there. And they take world history as sophomores. But not every sophomore actually takes world history. There are some who will end up taking something different for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's actually related to IEP team decisions, for example, and whether they think the kid's ready for that rigor. But there are also other things that impact that. So I think what the counselors standardly assign to the majority of kids in that grade level often becomes assumed to be required. But then the question becomes, if the kid fails the class and they pass some other social studies class, are they still graduating? And the answer is probably yes, because they rarely put them in it a second time. Having had a kid who failed a history class, they then wanted to put him into sociology because they thought the kid would have an easier time passing it, and it would still meet the graduation requirement. So we have some of that 30% is probably kids who sat in U.S. history, failed it, and then took something different to meet their social studies requirement. So what required truly means in terms of can the kid walk across the stage without that explicit class on their transcript versus how do we standardly schedule kids are 2 different things, but often interposed with one another. And I've seen it with, practically speaking, as a parent with 3 recent graduates. The majority of people take U.S. history in junior year. Some kids avoid it like the plague because it's known as a rigorous course, and their parents sign off on it. So, or some kids are taking concurrent enrollment at that point and not taking our course. So those are the pieces that I think we kind of need sorted out so we understand what that means when we say something's explicitly required. If it's not on the transcript, the kid doesn't graduate. And I don't think that's true at any of our 3 high schools for the classes we're talking about, other than a way to demonstrate civics. Does that make sense? So we have to be careful how we're using that word in terms of, is it the standard course sequence? Because that's true for some. Well, chemistry is required. Everybody takes it as a sophomore. Technically, they don't. We have a group of students who won't ever take chemistry, and for valid reason. But I think this is the same type of issue.
Director Heil?
And so getting to the core of what Marie is saying, I think what we need to do because the problem that was brought before us that we decided that we wanted to solve as a board is that a too high percentage of our students are graduating without these courses. And so we are not doing a good job of adequately preparing them to participate as citizens in our American democracy. And so what we should be doing then is discussing whether we want to increase our graduation requirements in our policy. The state sets a standard, but we are free to exceed it if we so desire.
Director DeVola?
So I do feel like I have a good understanding of what I could bring back to the task force. I will have to ask, if I'm not able to be there, that Director Schmidt is going to be able to state what was said here, because I may or may not be there. So if you could do that for me, that would be great.
I am also willing to try to be there because we can have 2 board members. So, yeah, if you can't make it, so that sounds good. And right now I was just listening to it all, but it sounds like the one-year all-encompassing course, like you had just mentioned, you made it up to 1945. And so I'm leaning more towards the year-and-a-half model. So I don't know if we want to, is that what you are suggesting after attending the task force?
Yes. So the year course for U.S. history and then the semester for government and civics. The one question we haven't there's 2 questions we haven't answered yet. One is, do we want to require world history? The other one is, what was it? Oh, do we want to have that action step course added? And if so, what would that entail, etc.?
Director Levere-Wright?
I think you don't have to require world history to make the vast majority of your students take it. Every student at Falcon High takes world history. It's not technically required for graduation, but it's what they automatically schedule them in as a sophomore. So if we say we want civics at our high school, civics/government taught in the senior year period, Falcon High's got to move a social studies class to fill that slot in freshman year. Guess what they're going to move to freshman year? World history. Everybody's going to take world history unless there's a very explicit reason they can't, right? So they're getting the course without it technically being required because it's the course the school puts all of their freshmen in. That preserves your ability to meet the needs of transfer students while still exposing the students who are with us for 4 years to everything we want them exposed to. Same thing, so that U.S. history course, if you put that junior year, anybody who's here with us junior and senior year gets that sequence of courses because that could be the one extra that we require. And that then still gives you the leeway for your transfer students and for kids who have other exceptions. I think if you name it explicitly, that makes it harder when you have the number of transfers in and out that we have. But you can essentially make it a de facto requirement, which is, I think, what you're actually hearing from this committee, based on how they schedule their students.
Well, and I lean towards, if we're going to require something, we live in the United States of America. So I would prefer that U.S. history is required. I think world history is important as well, because you can't talk about the 5,000-year leap without understanding world history. And so I like your suggestion about not requiring world history, but that we should require U.S. history, and world history will be there. So, yeah, I think that's...
And technically, they can essentially, they can make it a de facto requirement without it being a requirement. They already do that. You know, geography is not technically a requirement for graduation, but every single student who's been at Falcon High for 4 years took it because they needed something to fill the second half of the semester after civics freshman year. So everybody took geography as a half credit because it was a freshman level course and it was already scheduled in for every single freshman. So there are ways to do it without making it a technical requirement, that still get the kids who are with you for 4 years that knowledge and give you the flexibility to meet transfer student need.
Okay, anything else? So do we have a consensus to incorporate this conversation and move it forward to the task force?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. And now we are on to item 9.4, and I'd like people to know this as well. This was also discussed at the annual planning summit, and we as a board move this forward. And so this is a board project. This is not a one-person project. This is a Board of Education project. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward with the discussion for the survey results and the discussion for policy AD. And do we have, one thing that I'd like to touch on real quick too, or I could touch on it in just a moment if you'd like. Okay. Surveys are a snapshot in time. It's a way to gather data and information. We are not a democracy in how we determine on how things are gone. It doesn't matter if a majority says this or a majority says that. They are informative to the board. They are not dictatorial to the board. And so it was interesting to see the survey comments. There were a lot of community members who used that opportunity to express their First Amendment rights over topics that were completely unrelated to this discussion. And so I will address a little bit more of how that actually moved me a different direction, but maybe not in the way you think. So I did want to thank the people who participated. And I would encourage you, when you take part in a survey, to focus on that topic so we can take the end results with a little bit more, I don't know what the word would be, but where we'd feel you're a little more focused on the actual survey content. So, like I said, it's good. Since we are an example of a constitutional republic with elected representation, I don't think it was inappropriate for a board member to want community input. And it's fine if another board member did not want community input. We all were elected. We all have a say. And those who think we should diminish one voice or elevate one voice, that's not how a constitutional republic works. So, with that being said, I'd like to hear what my other fellow directors have to say. Director Schmidt, is that your flower? Okay.
Okay. I respect and appreciate Mr. Graham's mentioning the original intent behind having global society in the mission statement. However, that phrase has evolved into something that does not align with the original intent mentioned. According to CASB, as a board, we should be guided by our mission statement when making policy decisions. That means our mission statement guides the creation of every new policy and the revision of old policies. Ours currently guides us to include tenets of a global society in our district. Let's first define global society. Are we talking about cuisine, fashion and home style, or customs and traditions? In some parts of the globe, customs and traditions include things like Sharia law, caste societies, arranged marriages, child marriages as young as 9, bride kidnapping, slavery, child labor, death for witchcraft, forced sterilization, re-education camps, ethnic cleansing, honor killing, breast flattening, female genital mutilation, and scarification, which is like cutting, except it's done by another individual. I'm pretty sure most of the D49 community would not want these global customs and traditions to be at the forefront of the policy board's decisions. Other global society benefits include the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, which are a set of 17 interconnected targets. They were adopted in 2015. They include things like poverty, hunger, health, education, gender equality, and climate change. I looked at the first 4 closely just because they were first on the list. I have many concerns about policy decisions being made from this global belief. Nearly all 4 of them include transformative, transformational, or digital transformation. In a societal application, transformational refers to a deep and sustained systemic change that fundamentally reshapes society. This kind of change alters the structures, norms, values, and nature of how a society functions. Is fundamentally changing society a goal of this district? Social protection systems refers to policies and programs designed to shield individuals from risks and vulnerability throughout their lives. They aim to provide income security, access to essential services, safety, and support navigating various life transitions and shocks. Is supporting this type of dependency a goal of this district? These customs and traditions, goals, and definitions are part of what a global society entails. Our mission statement guides every policy we make. When we say global society in our mission statement, we are saying that we accept global ideals and will be writing and revising policy to support those goals. Is that what we want to do?
Director Schmidt, we're going to go through and then we will do another round. But it looks like you were done. Perfect timing. Director Heil.
Well, I do
saw
want
you.
another round, but yes.
Okay.
So I disagree with that definition of globalism. I think that it's just a recognition that we are one country on a globe and that we have to participate in a global exchange of ideas, of a global marketplace. Our students are going to have to compete in that world. I'm an IT worker, and there are employees throughout the world that I have to compete with in order to maintain my position, and so that's just the reality that I'm in. But because we were talking earlier about the founding, I've got this quote here from Thomas Paine's Common Sense, in which he originally proposes what would become the Declaration of Independence. And apart from making the case of why we're leaving the Union, he goes on to say, at the same time assuring all such courts, foreign courts, of our peaceable disposition to them and of our desire of entering into trade with them, such a memorial would produce more good effects to this continent than if a ship were freighted with petitions to Britain. He makes it clear that the point of the Declaration of Independence was to let foreign nations know that we are friendly to them and we would like to enter into trade. That is globalism, straight from our founding fathers. Now, that's not to say that this notion of the United States gives up its independence and surrenders to the black helicopters coming over to institute one world government. We govern ourselves, but we participate in trade and other relations with other nations who also govern themselves. And that's the reality we live in, and I'm comfortable with stating it. Now, as far as the substitute text for constitutional republic, well, what does that mean? Well, we have a constitution, and that's the highest law of the land, and we live in a republic, which means that we have a federation of semi-autonomous units. We call them states. Well, if you look around the world and see who else has who could call themselves a constitutional republic? The Soviet Union. So I don't know that that's words to conjure with. I don't get excited about calling us a constitutional republic because that doesn't really speak to what's unique about American values. Well, what's a major difference between us and the Soviet Union? We also had true democracy where they had sham democracy where you could vote for only one person for each office. So that's my spiel.
Director Livia Wright.
I'm kind of more of a process person, but I think personally, and I don't know if we're going to go through each issue or what, but so far the conversation has been focused on globalism, so I'll focus on that piece of the statement. I think, just personally from kind of watching the debate back and forth, but also as you read through many of the comments, leaving global society leaves a political connotation that is divisive, as does adding constitutional republic, because it seems both of those terms seem to be political fighting words. And so in my view, it would be better to go with the option where we just end with the word citizen. We're also raising our kids to be citizens in a variety of things, not just in our national government as Americans, but also in all of the areas of society in which they participate. But it also takes the political barbs out of it. And I think that's what we should be about. There's a reason school board elections are nonpartisan. And this has become a partisan argument from both sides, right? And you get that kind of in the commentary as you read people's comments, either vehemently in one direction, vehemently in the other. And I think what we should be doing is trying to remove that political vitriol wherever we can, and ending at the word citizens is the right place, I think, to do that. And this version of the mission statement, it was asked, well, where did it come from? I don't know exactly where global society was added. I think that actually predates me significantly, because I think that may have been a part of a mission statement that is from boards before me, but I know the last time this was revised and therefore reviewed by the entire board was in 2018, and then every policy is reviewed every 3 years. So anyone who served on a board since 2018, this was your vision statement, you were responsible for that policy as well. So if you didn't take action in 2020, 2021, 2022, there's everyone in there who's pointing fingers has to think about that themselves as well. But again, I think the least political and least divisive is to go with that compromise option where we just end at citizens.
Director DeVola?
I think Peter
I just wanted
has an answer.
to give a tiny historical point. I found this mission statement as early as 2001. We think it might have actually been there in 92, but it was definitely there because you can go on the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, and you can find this. And so, yeah, we heard from 2 former board members. Both of them took an oath to uphold this mission statement. It just wasn't controversial. It's been around for a long time, but that doesn't mean that the words mean the same thing they meant in 2001. So I embrace the opportunity to discuss it, but I just wanted the board to know this is at least a quarter century old. Maybe this is 35 years old.
Director DeVola?
Just to be clear, my first year on the board, I had wanted to change this, and I did not have 3 out of 5 who were with me. So just to let you know about that. I also find it very interesting that constitutional republic somehow is a political word when that is in fact the truth of what we are as a nation. So that just shows that we have not taught well what our government is, which is very sad, which is another reason why I think it's important for us to include this piece in our U.S. history and civics and government course, so that people realize that constitutional republic is not a political word. It is, in fact, what we are as a country. And so that's going to be something that's very important that we need to realize. So I am 100% in favor of keeping the in our constitutional republic as part of our mission statement, especially since we want to do our civics and government course, so that in fact we know what we are.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree that when it said this term is political, this is what we are. We are a constitutional republic. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it's to the republic for which it stands. And so You know, by the way, I was hoping tonight we would discuss the document and some of the red line additions, and I'm going to come up with an idea for the board to discuss as well. Because once again, this was moved forward under board consensus to bring this forward for a revision. And Lynette just showed me in 2010 that there was a red line revision put forward that crossed out global society. And we also have different votes on when this was put in. The Constitution establishes a system of government that embodies the key characteristics of a constitutional republic. Specifically, the Constitution defines the structure and the powers of the federal government, establishes a system of separation of powers, and protects the rights of citizens, which, by the way, is the primary purpose of the Bill of Rights, is to protect individual rights, all of which are the hallmarks of a constitutional republic. And so the United States is a democracy, but not a true democracy. Instead, it is a representative democracy. The common forms of democracy are direct democracy and representative democracy. A direct democracy is a system of government in which the majority have their say on every matter concerning governance. Direct democracies hold referendums, each issue at a time, and they have to be decided on because there's no elective representatives. The United States is a representative democracy as the public elects individuals to represent them at all government levels. It's also a constitutional democracy, meaning that we have to line up within the boundaries of the Constitution. So anyway, let's go for 1 second round, and then I will give a proposal to the board. Director Schmidt.
Okay, I found this today. Democracy. In a democracy, the majority rules. If the majority decided they wanted to take your bike, they could take it. In a republic, your bike is your property, and you do not owe it to anyone. It cannot be taken against your will by law. America is a constitutional republic. Therefore, the Constitution is the law by which we are supposed to be protected. In a republic, the individual is protected from the majority by constitutional law. A constitutional republic is what we are given. It's up to us to keep it. We all benefit from living in a constitutional republic. The system of government offers us all a constitution, a Bill of Rights, and the Electoral College. It offers separation of powers, which divides governmental authority to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. A constitutional republic offers the right to self-rule, where citizens have the right to choose their representatives and to hold them accountable. Every one of us was elected to serve on this board, and because of the Constitution, any one of us can be removed in the next election or by a recall vote. In a constitutional republic, representatives are expected to represent the interests of all of their constituents, not just the interests of a select few. Protection of individual rights is also a benefit we all enjoy. The rule of law ensures that everyone is treated equally under the law, regardless of their status or background. It provides citizens with greater freedom to live their lives according to their own terms, as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others. Mirroring the ideals in our country's Constitution and using them as a guide in our policy decisions keeps our focus on a balance of power, self-rule, individual rights, and accountability. Our constitutional republic provides a framework for a stable governance, even during times of political change. Why wouldn't we use this example of great governance? This is why I recommend placing of a constitutional republic both in the mission statement and in the educational philosophy statement. Thank you.
Director Heil. And by the way, if you could hold applause, this is the work portion. Director Heil.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said there about the strength of our constitutional republic. I think every one of us here agrees that we have a wonderful constitution, and we support it, and I even took an oath to do so. The problem is with the generic statement of we are a constitutional republic, and that is because our Constitution is a unique document that has unique features that include separation of powers, protection of property, et cetera, et cetera. You can have a constitution in another country with another government that doesn't do any of that. And we've seen that. There are countries out there that call themselves republics that are living under tyranny. And again, I go back to my previous example. The Soviet Union had a constitution. It had no separation of powers. It had no anything other than a sham democracy. And yet they could accurately call themselves a constitutional republic. So, yeah, I don't understand why those are words to conjure by in the United States. I love our Constitution, but there are so many ways that a Constitution could go wrong. I still support what Marie said. Let's get rid of the constitutional republic because that, for some reason, has become politicized language. Let's get rid of global society because, for some reason, that has become politicized language. Let's serve all students and all perspectives and just end it at citizens.
Director Olivia Wright.
I think that is the essential point. I don't disagree that describing our government as a constitutional republic is wrong. I'm saying that many things have become very politicized. And if our goal is to serve our students and to keep politicized lightning rods out, and maybe to make it stand, right? So if this has been around since the 1990s for global society, and it has not stood the test of time well because the meaning of those words has changed, or the way in which people interpret them has changed, or the way in which people use it as a weapon has changed. I think we're entering that same danger zone. You end it at citizens. Citizen is a citizen is a citizen. Nobody gets to use a political dog whistle in one direction or another to try and call somebody out. And I think that's what we should be about if we're looking at depoliticizing it, taking away any messaging that is counter to what our country is. But I don't think we have to re-emphasize that or use a term that, be honest, is being used at one side or another to be thrown in one another's faces in some way. Not just as a descriptor of government, but in the way that people treat one another right now in a whole set of political conversations. And that's why there's reaction negatively back to it. Not because our government is not technically a constitutional republic or because most of us don't know that. The reality is that most of us do know that. Lots of people forget things that they're not interested in too, by the way. So I'm pretty sure if I put a pre-calc equation in front of you, even if you took it in high school, most of you wouldn't solve it anymore because it's not something you use or continue to be interested in. Lots of the finer details about things, if people didn't find a reason to continue to study it, they may have been taught in high school and known it when they took their SATs and 15 years later not remember it.
Director DeVola.
Yes, to Director Heil's point, so the first revision does say our constitutional republic. I would also be in favor of, for the second section that had foundation of a democratic society and then revision, responsible and productive citizens are the foundation of, changing it to our constitutional republic instead of a constitutional republic. I'm in favor of that. So I actually would propose an amendment to change responsible and productive citizens are the foundation of a constitutional republic to our constitutional republic. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, before we discuss any revisions, I have another thing I'm going to bring up, but I like that one. Okay, was that the point? Okay. The only thing I would like to say at this point is if using the correct phrase of our constitutional republic is a lightning rod, bring on the lightning. We are talking tonight about teaching American history. That is a foundational principle of American history. Now, my hope was when this was put up as an agenda item that we could go through some of the proposed revisions. And the proposed revisions that are in here, and more can be added, are an example of a constitutional republic with representative governance. Not one person, not two persons, but getting input for the entire board. And I don't think we're making a lot of progress because we're not actually discussing the document. So my proposal is that we continue to work on adding comments to this document and then come back to visit it during a work session where we can actually discuss the document that we're talking about revising. So I would like to know if how the rest of the board feels about that we can go through the document, that we can add the comments, and that maybe we could even get two of us together to try to take that into account and then bring forth a version or whichever you prefer. I just don't feel like we are discussing the actual document, but hopefully we are educating the public. So, Director Schmidt?
Well, actually, where I'm coming at with all of my comments has to do with CASB tells us we have to, well, we don't have to, but they suggest that our policies and our revisions should work around our mission statement. So we need to make sure that mission statement is what we want to work around.
And that is a valid point. And so I just don't think that this is something that will get solved this evening. And that's why I'm proposing that we continue to add comments to the working version. And then we'll find out what kind of consensus we can develop over that. But there has to be mutual respect and give and take. So I want to hear the comments from all of the directors. And, you know, using the First Amendment, tonight a lot of people spoke a lot of things that weren't true. That's their First Amendment right to do so. When they talk about, oh, well, this is politicized, or you can't speak about religion, the First Amendment to the Constitution says, or prohibit the free exercise thereof. Now, I am blessed. As a follower of Jesus Christ, I have friends who aren't Christians. I have friends that have a variety of beliefs or no beliefs at all, because that's part of the Bill of Rights, and because I have a very wide variety of friends. So I would like to continue working on this document to add more comments to it and see what we can come up with at a work session that goes through more of this than just one item. Director Heil, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to propose instead, because we've already got the work in, we put together these different revisions. They've the community has weighed in on them, and I think that we could get this done pretty quickly if we just hit each one of these recommendations and we just said, you know, essentially, what is the board consensus on this? If we get 3 people who say that they like this particular revision, then that's the one that goes forward and it can become an action item.
Any other input to that idea? If we could stay focused on the document. Director DeVola, you have your hand up.
I agree with Director Heil. I think we should go up point by point and have consensus on this section, this section, this section. That's my input.
Oh, it looks like we have a consensus on that. So let's go through this.
I'm sorry, Madam President, can we have that up on the, I don't have my computer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you make that a little bit bigger there? Yeah. Okay, so the vision short form, the proposal is we endeavor to be the best choice in education by respecting the voice of our community, delivering valued pathways for students, and pursuing performance excellence.
Madam President, if I may, could we instead work from the survey?
The survey is informational for the board. It is not directive or prescriptive to the board because we're not a democracy.
But that at least gives us a common framework of these are the 3 things that we are discussing, and it would make it easier for us to resolve
Hold
the
on one
vote.
second, Director Schmidt.
I'm sorry, I wasn't going to talk about the survey tonight. However, the survey does not represent the whole community. 52% of those responses were from staff. Very few of them, 27%, I believe, was from actual community members. So it did not represent the whole community.
And I'd also like to point out that some of the comments were so far off topic that I thought that the survey revealed some good information or data points to look at. There were some good suggestions, then they were way off topic. Some used it as a platform for personal attacks. So I actually have to agree that the way this survey was completed, that I don't think it's necessarily representative of the community.
So I'm not concerned. I wasn't suggesting that so that we could look at the comments. Because this breaks things down very, very, here's a slide with, these are the 3 options for this edit, and then we can say which one we choose. And that slide doesn't contain any commentary.
There's other edits on here that weren't part of the survey.
Yeah. All right.
Well, once again, okay,
yeah.
Director DeVola?
Yeah, there's edits on here that weren't in the survey, so I think it's important for us to go through each of these pieces, but we can use the survey for which piece we're on. Does that make sense? So we can go back and forth with that, but I think we should just go straight through.
That's fair.
So we were back to the vision long form. Any inputs or thoughts on that one? And if we could keep our comments brief on this, Director DeVola?
I think it's I also don't think the survey was necessarily accurate, but it looked like there was great consensus that we used the long form. So I'm cool with the long form being on there.
So I think you should take the respecting voice of the community out of the sentence. That implies when you give a survey, you're following it. So you might want to say, we endeavor to be the best choice in education by delivering valued pathways for students and pursuing performance excellence. Putting voice of the community first implies you're running your decisions by the community each time, and respecting the voice of community means you're then using that information to make the decision in a way that some people may read that statement. And it's very clear that that's not the intent, given the level of description of that's not how a constitutional republic works over and over and over again. So I think you're setting yourself up for a mess by having that phrase in there. We do have, engaging our community as a big rock, so we have those things reflected in the rocks, but saying it that way in that vision also implies it's the first priority.
That seems to be a valid point. Any other input on that one?
The only thing I would be concerned with is respecting the voice of our community, not having the whole community. If we want to do a survey and find out what staff thinks, that's fine if that's what our target audience is. But I understood this to be the whole community. So I would probably not be contrary to taking out respecting the voice of our community. For the reasons that Director.
I think that one point that's made is when we're talking about the best choice, talking about delivering valued pathways for students and pursuing performance excellence, that they both tie in with best choice. And I do think we engage our community. And so we listen to a variety of voices here, and then the board will makes the decision where we can reach a quorum. So I am okay with shortening that, because I always feel the more concise you are, the better it is. So if we endeavor to be the best choice in education.
Madam President, may I interject
Yes.
here? And I'll ask you to consider my input on some of these other ones, but here's one where I think it is almost a complete reversal to at least my 12 years, but it precedes me, of finding ways to respect the voice of our community. We have schools because of the voice of our community. All the praise you gave our communications and us about our weather decisions is voice of our community. Letting our community openly comment on Facebook is respecting. So to narrow it down to whether a single survey out of hundreds that we've done respects the voice of our community is incredibly reactive to recent events. Do you know we sent 23,000 invitations to that survey? So the implication that this wasn't offered to our whole community, the more correct interpretation is this isn't that big a deal to our whole community, and the implication that staff members aren't community members is also quite jarring. We the distinction was we heard from 52% were staff members, but we didn't hear from our community. I consider every one of those 52% a member of our community as well as the rest. And so I'm giving you some energy here because I've worked incredibly hard to respect the voice of our community, and so have all of you, because you are the elected voice of our community. We do a lot of things, live streaming our meetings. We do a lot of things. So I would advocate pretty strongly that we keep this in there, or I would question, have we really changed our philosophy? Because a lot of what you praise us for is reflecting that. So I'll wait to be called on for other things, or I'll raise my hand and ask permission, but that's one that I
actually
care
appreciate the input, because this is what I was hoping would happen tonight, that we would have a discussion on the revisions, what they like, what we don't like. Director DeVola?
Yes. I totally 100% agree that we should keep this in here, first of all, because respecting the voice of our community is not based on one survey. It's based on multiple different things. And so to say that we're not respecting the voice of the community just because there's pieces of that survey that were not necessarily valid does not mean that we're not respecting the voice of the community. So I don't want to send off radar signals by taking that out, and then suddenly everyone's like, wait, you don't respect us anymore? That's not accurate. So we definitely need to keep that in. Plus, I'm pretty sure that vision statement is on a lot of our materials, all over everything. We do not want to have to change all of that. So let's keep that long form and see where we land with consensus, please.
But it's all
Director
green, so green was new in this document.
It's the long form versus the short form. The short form was the one that was in this document, the best choice, period.
Where is that written somewhere else?
We have been using it. For example, that long form is in the waypoints document that the board has repeatedly approved, but it wasn't in this policy. That's why we brought it over. The long form mission has been in this policy for a long, long time. Long form vision has not. We've just had the best choice, and then we had the long form in the waypoints document.
And
the reason why I think that's valid too is because even when we had our communications presentation, we talked about and praised them for soliciting input from the community, which happened tonight. Director Levere, right?
With it all being green, I didn't see it as anything other than all brand new. I also think it still could be better by saying engaging our community. Rather than respecting the voice of. I just think it implies something that you're going to get beat up for, because not just the one survey, but because of lots of conversations over the last 2 years of, but we were elected and therefore, and which were intentionally negating when people spoke and made them feel unheard. So that statement being there is going to be one of those things you're going to get emailed about over and over again. But if you said engaging our community, that's exactly what we have on our big rock, is engaging. So it becomes more consistent with what we have as those big rocks.
Director DeVola? Oh, Director Schmidt?
I believe when I suggested putting the long form in, I said it was good.
Director DeVola? No, you had your hand up first from what I could see.
Yeah, so I would say Heil first.
Okay. Director Heil?
Yeah, I think that we have the right language in there by saying we're respecting the voice of the community. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be, swayed by every argument, right? Because there are so many perspectives in our community. So, but we're at least, we hear it at the dice here all the time. We hear things that might be even fundamentally untrue, but we give them that platform and we listen to them, and that is respectful, even if we're not going to take any of that on and act on it. So I think respecting the voice is good. I think Marie raises a good point about the priority list, and I think that I think we probably want to say that they're reversed, right? Pursuing performance excellence is probably our highest priority. We also deliver valued pathways for students, and we respect. But again, I don't think that that's important enough to go and update 20 million documents in the district.
Director DeVola?
Yeah, I actually agree with both Director LeVere-Wright when it comes to changing it to engage. That actually aligns more here. I also agree with Director Heil with the order of things, but I 100% do not want to have any financial burden with us changing everything in our district just because the order is different. So I think we should just keep it, honestly, just because I know what it's like to have to change everything. My school changed their name, and my goodness, we are still, to this day, changing things because we changed the name of our school. So I'm okay with it the way it stands.
So this was porting in the long form into the mission statement without changes. If we can change less, and if it is clear that we both respect and engage the community, because we have respect here and engage up there, I'm okay with that. Do I have a consensus to keep that or import that in?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, so the next part we are looking at a change, and I'm trying. It looks like right here, by learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe, caring, and supportive environment to be successful, competent, and productive citizens in. One change was our constitutional republic. I think that sentence is still a little clunky, but I like what it is communicating. And I'm reading the notes. Reference to state required by statute care is a specific value on the cultural compass, clearly defined. Not sure what supportive adds. Any comments about supportive, Director DeVola?
So this is one where I might actually look at the survey, because I think it kind of pinpointed the three options that we had here. I don't know if anyone else wanted to chime in on that, just because the survey had the three different items. If we wanted to pull that up, would we be able to pull that up?
Can you read that? Why don't you read it?
It's not public. Oh, it's not public.
Okay, can you read then what the ranked choice voting was on that one?
Yep,
Director?
I've got it pulled up. It says, by learning, revision A was by learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and supportive environment. So this was so this is different than what the original one was, because caring had been taken out. To be successful, competent, and productive citizens in our constitutional republic. Then a proposed revision B, which is what it looks like. Oh no, so this one has two. So these three don't reflect this. None of these actually explicitly reflect this. Revision A says, by learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and supportive environment to be successful, competent, and productive citizens in our constitutional republic. Proposed revision B was, by learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and supportive environment to be successful and competent and productive citizens. And then current, by learning, working, and leading, we'll prepare students in a safe and caring environment to be successful, competent, and productive citizens. So this red line is different than any of the three things we set out, because the two proposed versions that were sent to the community did not include the word caring.
And the note I see here, once again, is that care is a specific value on cultural compass, clearly defined. So I'm guessing that if we remove caring and then add in our constitutional republic.
I think the point is the other way around on that comment. So it's saying, to be consistent between the documents, it would make more sense to say, by learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and caring because caring is one of our cultural compass values. Environment, rather than and supportive, or rather than supportive, that comment means don't replace caring with supportive. It means leave caring because caring is consistent with the cultural compass rather than substituting supportive.
And without splitting hairs, I think caring is supportive. Director DeVola?
I agree. I think we should just make it simple. By learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and caring environment to be successful, competent, productive citizens in our constitutional republic. So we changed it, I would like to change it to our constitutional republic, which is what was also in the survey.
Director Schmidt?
So I agree. By learning, working, and leading, we will prepare students in a safe and caring environment to be successful, competent, and productive citizens in our constitutional republic.
Okay, so can I get a consensus on that one? See if we can get to, or Director Heil, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to repeat again that I'd like to, my preference would be to end it at productive citizens, but I'm comfortable with the edit to remove and supportive. But lacking a consensus, the change to make it our constitutional republic is a significant improvement.
And like I said, we're not going to have 100% consensus on a lot of this. So what's been proposed then is safe and caring environment, strike supportive, to be successful, competent, and productive citizens in our constitutional republic. Can I get a consensus on that?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay, so now if we move on to the educational philosophy statement, right here we had a strike through on students' needs in all domains, academic, social, and physical, and it was changed to students' academic needs. And
I think there's more, isn't there? Huh? I'm sorry. I think there's more.
Okay, so what is the change?
So it does
one?
cover academic, social, and physical. It's just longer. It's more descriptive. They're more descriptive.
I'm not sure. So keep in the words academic, social, and physical?
So what she did was she crossed out those and instead decided to define each to students' needs and then defining what they are. I think the simpler original statement is better.
I agree.
Okay, so do we have a consensus on that?
On which? So
that's what I was trying to figure out.
Right.
On the simpler.
So you have the document as changed took out students' needs in all domains, academic, social, and physical. And originally we just was changed to students' academic needs. Then academic was crossed out and now they're defined. I think the definitions are unnecessarily and make it way longer.
This is one where on your individual devices pulling up the survey might be helpful because it shows the difference between the original and the proposed revision. But the proposed revision has these additional triple bullet points, which you have to scroll down, David.
Yes,
it's got these three bullet points, and those. Well, you can see your own comments on that. But anyway, if you look at the survey, this one was relatively close on the survey. 40% liked the revision, 45% liked the original.
No. And my only comment about this one is, while I agree about parents, because we have a Parents' Bill of Rights and responsibilities, some people actually didn't like and responsibilities, but with every right comes a responsibility. I have the right to own a gun. I do not have the right to stand in the middle of Austin Bluffs Parkway and fire at other cars. So with every right comes a responsibility. So a teacher, part of those social needs are raise your hand, ask to go to the bathroom, don't hit the student next to you. So, you know, to allow a negative connotation into social, I have 2 kids. I have 3 stepkids. I have other kids that I've taken into my home. I do not have 27 kids. And so when it comes to teaching them to be part of a social environment in a larger classroom, I don't know that we need that. Parents are predominantly responsible for a student's social well-being. And then it talks about parents working in a partnership with school staff in the social development of students. I don't know how many parents do that. I did. I participated in the classrooms. So I don't know if that's a little bit clunky, but as far as social needs, there's times the school staff does not have communication or the support of the parents. So I don't know if we want to simplify that a bit, but Director DeVola, you were almost raising your hand.
I'm back and forth on this one because I think it does, like the role of a school is to teach kids academically. In order to do that, you do have to engage with them socially, and like physical education is important. I just don't want it to be all-encompassing, and having the definitions helps to solidify that we are not there to meet all of their social, physical, and academic. Well, we are for academic, but not social and physical. And this kind of emphasizes that we're there to meet all of their needs. We're everything to these kids. So having the definitions, I think, is important, but I don't know if I'm gonna win that consensus. So,
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
May I suggest perhaps drawing the 3 bullet points down into the following beliefs section? If the board has consensus that these are helpful definitions, they could be moved down into the beliefs section, and then you could leave the statement essentially unchanged.
You know, I like that idea because I also like one thing as far as the social needs is to emphasize the important role parents play, whether they choose to exercise it or not. So I like the idea of pulling that down to the beliefs and keeping that unchanged, because it never hurts to say, hey, you're predominantly responsible for the social well-being, misbehavior or good behavior. So do we have Director Heil, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I'm not feeling that social needs one. I think we all agree that parents are the most, important people, and they are predominantly responsible. But I think it does 2 things. I think that, one, it puts us in opposition, where we're telling the parents, hey, that's not our problem, that's your problem. And I don't think that that's the message that we want to be conveying. Do
you have a proposed revision for that?
I mean, I think we've already established this in like our Parents' Bill of Rights and stuff like that, as you said, with the fact that we also recognize that every right comes with attendant responsibilities. But this is our mission statement, and so it should be aspirational, and so and it should mostly convey positivity, and so that's why this makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Director Schmidt?
So this is our philosophy statement. It's not our mission statement. I like the definitions, but if we move them down to the belief, how would the upper area read? Can you scroll back to the other page?
We would have to do a minor amount of wordsmithing, like.
So it would say Falcon School District
needs.
is committed to the creation of educational environments where all children can maximize their individual potential. Is there anything else we need to say there, if we're going to move those definitions down?
I think part of maximizing their potential includes academic, social, and physical.
Then I would not say to move those down.
The definitions down, but keep
I would
the
keep the
sentences
definitions
in the same.
Philosophy statement right here, if you want to have that outlined.
Director DeVola?
I think Mr. Superintendent Hiltz had a point to make, actually, and I'm curious to see what you were going to say, because I have a feeling I know.
I was just going to say, unstrike the red strike. end it after the word physical in the strike through, and then I will volunteer to just change the stem. So the first one, I would leave it almost as it is, academic needs, colon, and then students led by educators. But if you scroll down, please, you'll see that the next two look like sentence fragments. They need, well, actually social needs works. It's really only the last one, physical needs. You would need something like, by offering nutritious meals, physical activity, and a safe and accessible environment, District 49 is committed to create an environment where all students can thrive. You would need something in it so that it's not a sentence fragment. We can clean that up without offending your intent, and that would allow us to preserve the thoughtfulness that's in those definitions. Belief statements are a great place to express your thoughtfulness, and it would let us retain the simplicity of the original language in the philosophy statement.
Director DeVola?
I also think, to Director Heil's point, we could reduce social needs just a little bit to have a little bit more of the partnership with the school staff being predominant. So, not predominant, but in partnership. So parents are predominantly responsible for a student's social well-being. However, school staff will work in partnership with parents in the social development of students. So we can switch the parents with the school staff in that second half of the sentence.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. I think we want to make sure that we are indicating that we have a responsibility in there as well. I don't think you've quite arrived at the language I was thinking of, but you're definitely there conceptually.
Okay. I think what we're talking about then is restoring the original line, and then with a little bit of wordsmithing, adding that underneath with our belief statements. Do I have an agreement on that one, or?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yes, she does. I just, having lived in the IEP world forever, there are physical needs and social needs that go beyond these definitions that we meet in IEPs all the time. We have kids who access physical therapists and occupational therapists to meet physical needs and social needs, developing the ability to even pragmatically communicate. All of those things are social needs that are met in those pieces. And these definitions ignore that component. Now, legally, we'd have to provide it anyway, but that's where when I look at this, I'm like, it just reads to me
Director
in a way
DeVola?
that is dismissive of those very real needs that we do meet through individual education plans.
Director DeVola?
So I would push back against that. I think the last part on here says in a safe and accessible environment where all students can thrive. I believe that falls underneath that. An accessible environment means we have to meet the needs of our IEP students.
Accessible isn't the same thing as skill gaining. No, it's not. Accessibility isn't the same. So,
I'm sorry, the same as what I didn't hear.
So as working with a kid who can't hold the pen and having the occupational therapist come in and give them hand strength exercises, or an occupational therapist who's working with them on other physical needs that where they're developmentally, physically behind their peers. Accessibility and skill gaining aren't the same thing. They mean different things.
So maybe we could have some more wordsmithing to add something in there to.
Well, I think the IEP, which is required, once again you get into requirements, that to me can be separate from this, because we are under IDEA, we are supposed to provide that. But one important clarification, we started off as Falcon School District 49, we are now School District 49. So just make sure that we are not, and I wanted to thank Mr. Nancaro for pointing that out, that we are District 49.
Yeah, we're El Paso County, Colorado, District 49 legally, School District 49 legally, and that was a ginormous community discussion several years ago.
Well, that's fun. I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Yeah, that's because colloquially, even in the media, they still call us Falcon, and we're technically not anymore.
Back when Powers was a 2-lane dirt road where I was learning to drive, it was Falcon School District 49, and nothing existed over here but cows. Okay, so I think Jamie Lynn has a tasking she wants to bring up.
Yes, can we task Superintendent Hiltz to help us with some wordsmithing on those 3 bullet points to capture what we've heard here tonight?
Only if Lynette will give me her notes, but yes, I'm happy to do that.
Do we have consensus for tasking, or are we all good? We all good?
I think we're good with that.
But
Okay,
you're
we're
not
all-
done. There are several left that you need to consent on.
All right, moving on.
Just in case we want to know, do we have agreement on tasking for those 3 bullet points as they're added underneath?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are on to it looks like
Your next item would be every student has the potential to achieve excellence, which had overwhelming support.
yeah.
Consensus? Yes.
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 So we're leaving that red line sentence that was read to be added and then redlined out then, right? Okay.
Yes,
That was
that's
a
what
good
I'm
change.
assuming.
Okay.
Okay, now we're down to responsible and productive citizens are the foundation of a constitutional republic, which we have discussed ad nauseum above. So, Director DeVola, I see your hand up. Speak.
Yes, and I had mentioned this previous, changing it to responsible and productive citizens are the foundation of our constitutional republic.
Agreed.
I agree.
I hate it less.
I think that's agreement,
I'm
but
with
yes. Okay. All students can and want to learn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm either way on that one. I think it's repetitive, but I can live with
Okay,
it.
well, we have a consensus on that. I was just thinking can is true, want. Sorry, I'm going back to the trauma of having teenagers. Okay, the next one is individuals are responsible and accountable for their own actions. I give that 2 thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm on the fence on that one. I mean, I generally agree with it. It just, again, comes to that, it seems like it's being oppositional.
You think accountability is oppositional?
I just saying it just sets it sends a negative tone to, oh, you know.
Well, I find
I mean, I think we all
would still
agree
have
that
coffee
accountability
with
is
you.
important in this district. In fact, I've asked for more accountability for school boards, but
Director Schmidt?
Aren't we accountable for the good things we do?
Yes, agency. Director DeVola?
Yeah, we work really hard to make people understand that accountability is not negative. There's no not negative connotation to it, though if you do it well and you do it right. So I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. Definitely love the word accountable.
Well, and accountability can also involve getting your associate's degree before your high school diploma. I mean, accountability isn't always negative. Director DeVola?
And I do want to point out that all students do want to learn. They want to. You just sometimes have to discover why they're being oppositionally defiant. It's not that they don't want to learn, it's that there's something else there. So I wanted to point that out.
And you are correct, because I know that sometimes, especially we go back to the IEP, sometimes kids on an IEP are embarrassed by their IEP, or they want to hide their learning disability or their need for assistive technology, etc. So I think that that is good if you provide the right environment. I would have loved to have had allies back in the 90s. And so I have to give kudos to District 49, El Paso County School District 49, that they have made more opportunities available for more kids from Goal High School to Allies to the hybrid learning at Spring Studio. I mean, I'm going to give a big rah-rah of the things people don't know about us that they should talk about. Director Heil?
I just want to give a quick rah-rah, too, because this conversation has been pedantic and banal at times, and we still have 2 community members who are with us, so thank you
Those were really big vocabulary words.
Yes.
I'll have to go and look it up in the dictionary. Thank you.
Yes, either that or they are masochistic. There's also another alternative word we could throw in. But I prefer it over slash and burn, hit and run. People who stay engaged is very important. So, all right. So, it sounds like we had that. We're done. Adios mío.
May I propose next steps?
Sure.
We will redraft a version of this policy without any side comments, with all of the agreed changes, with specific highlighting on the 3 bullet point definitions with micro revisions. I will endeavor to retain the spirit and the language of those, but just clean them up a little bit grammatically. We'll present that back to you as what I understand to be the consensus, and you may then move that into board docs for future action, or you could discuss it in the context of an action item. Since you have spent a lot of time already, there's nothing wrong with a final discussion leading to a final vote.
Yes, because
And
our
Lynette
next meeting.
will support me, but it's on me to get this done before I go catch salmon.
No, I think that's a great idea because I think our next meeting is a special meeting. And so,
You could approve this.
yeah. No, that sounds like, do I have a consensus on this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Now, the next thing,
We got a
which
whatever.
we go back to those of us who are raving fans of goal. As a board, we worked on this resolution last year. I never heard what happened to it with CASB. So CASB was asking for resolutions. So I would like to ask our CASB representative to read again what we as a board in a consensus put together last year. And I just, once again, I'm so proud of Goal. Okay, if you could read that, Jamie Lynn.
Yes. Whereas Goal Academy is a statewide alternative high school that offers hybrid education, drop-in centers, and flexibility that benefits students in a variety of situations. Whereas Goal Academy is also an attractive option for students who are behind on their credits, possibly due to life-changing challenges, and are at higher risk for dropping out. Whereas because of the unique population of Goal Academy, their graduation data and academic performance is significantly lower than conventional schools, whereas the number of statewide students of Goal Academy exceed all of District D49's local high schools combined, whereas less than 5% of Goal Academy students reside in El Paso County, whereas Goal Academy's graduation data and academic performance significantly and disproportionately impacts D49's district performance framework, whereas Goal Academy's data provides an artificial picture of graduation rates and workforce readiness, whereas District 49 is committed to maintaining our charter in support of Goal Academy throughout the state of Colorado and is proud of opportunities offered by Goal, whereas Goal Academy serves an important role in increasing the number of high school graduates throughout the state, whereas students who earn a high school diploma have higher earning potential throughout their lifetime and benefit the state of Colorado. Therefore, be it resolved that the board requests the state legislature to develop legislation to report district performance framework data in a way that separates alternative education campus data from all other performance data. Be it further resolved that the board will work with the district lobbyist and local legislatures to support such legislation. Be it further resolved that the board encourages Goal principals and staff to reach out to their local legislatures to support such legislation.
And then we'll have to adopt this if we have a board consensus, because right now it reads approved and adopted this 25th day of June 2024. And so we would just need to update the date. But the reason why I think this is so important to encourage legislators to separate this data is 2 reasons. Number one, we don't want school districts to be afraid to have and offer alternative high schools. Number two, why I get passionate about this, and I want to thank Superintendent Hiltz for standing up with me once, where there are people with not such good intent who like to take those numbers and use it as a battering ram instead of listening to the truth. On our recent graduations, we had 100% graduation from Banning Lewis Preparatory Academy. We had 100%, I think, on Spring Studio. And so those who use this advocacy as an attempt to attack El Paso County School District 49, I think this is really important, and I want to encourage other districts throughout the state to do this. Director DeVola, you have your hand up.
Yes, if we're going to submit this to CASB specifically, we would need to take out the ones that are applied directly to us. So the be it further resolved, those two be it further resolves at the end, just because that doesn't apply to.
Well, I would actually make a completely different suggestion for the argument with CASB. Okay. So making it specific to goal is going to kill you at CASB every single time.
I was wondering
because the
about that.
districts those students come from get really obnoxious about goal. So this, as written, makes sense. And honestly, I think the place where where you might get the most movement eventually is legislatively, not actually through CASB, but not through going with CASB, going separately with legislatures. Because even in a Democratic supermajority, this should be one of their callings, right? This should be the community they want to serve a ton. And so showing goal success would be important for making that argument. But I think a more generic one about AECs that isn't explicit and doesn't call out goal, I think it would probably still fail because people will immediately think of goal. However, I think staying more on general AEC status and the manner in which AECs can impact districts and how because AEC allowing a school to be an AEC can lower a district's rating, that AEC should be excluded from district ratings. I think you might eventually get more traction and in CASB by not making it goal specific.
And that was the point I was making, is that we want to encourage other districts. So Director DeVola had her hand up first, and then Director Heil.
I already spoke once, but do you want to go first?
Thank you. This is a D49 resolution, and it speaks specifically to our concerns, and so I think it's appropriate for us to go ahead and approve this if we desire. But I do think that Marie has hit the nail on the head. When it comes to submitting the CASB resolution, let's not talk about goal at all. Let's talk about AECs in general because everybody's got them.
And then I have a question. If Director Levere-Wright is willing to work with Superintendent Hiltz to revise this to submit to CASB?
What is the submission deadline?
Yeah, he leaves town in a week, and I leave town in. He and I are not in town at the same time for the next 6 weeks because I am out of state for an entire month. I'm gone for all of July. I'll be calling in. I'll be finding somewhere that I have adequate internet to call in.
When is the deadline to submit to CASB? Does anyone know? Yes, our CASB representative.
I'm very willing to work on this, and I actually have some content from Amy Atwood because this was one of our goals right there. So we have worked on this. We also want to make sure that the date of the signature line is 2025. It's currently 24. We'll get that right.
Yep, that's right.
But what I think I'm hearing is a both and. Approve this as is and use it as an inspiration for a different resolution. I actually am hopeful. I don't think it'll happen this year, but I'm hopeful in a year from now, because of some changes at the federal level, we may have an opportunity to sequester AEC data from district data universally. There might be a lot more receptivity to that in Colorado. July 18th is the date? Yep. We can definitely meet that.
Okay.
We can even get it ready for you to vote on both of them at the July meeting.
So, yeah, because this would, the only revision will be the date then, and then we can work on the alternative. Director Schmidt?
So I'm just questioning, trying to understand AEC, Alternative Educational Campus. Don't those already have separate frameworks?
They have separate frameworks, but they're applied to the district's overall, the district performance framework.
Okay.
So those come into the DPF, and that's where, when you take on such an incredible journey like goal, it can make, and even though, to give you an example, we have explained this multiple times to the Gazette Telegraph, and a particular reporter there continues to report graduation rates that are not reflective of our district. So what I'm going to say is that we should move this forward with a date correction and also task the superintendent to come up with an alternative resolution to submit to CASB by our next meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I may ask, but I also was just explanatory-wise. So AEC status then keeps that school from being put on a performance plan, right? They can be, their performance. However, they then take their raw data and average it in with the raw data of all our other high schools to say overall high school performance. When they do that, even though there isn't a single high school, I don't think, that wasn't, well, I don't know about Patriot, but all of our charter high schools, Falcon High, Sand Creek, and Vista, all have graduation rates well over 90%. Our overall graduation rate is around 50%. So when people stand up here and say we're failing our kids, we're not. We've taken on all of the kids who needed second and third and fourth and fifth chances in goal from the entire state. And because goal has over 6,000? They're trying, they're aiming for 9,000 or 10,000 sometime soon, is what I heard from somebody at Goal. They have more than half our high school population, right? Falcon High School has a little over 1,000 kids. Our other schools are each 1,100 or 1,200. All the charters are only a couple hundred. So all of our high schools together, other than Goal, don't add to the same number as Goal. So all of Goal's SAT scores pull our district SAT ratings down. When you take Goal out, that's why all of a sudden we're in the top third. If we remove Goal's data, we're in the top third of districts in the state. If we include Goal's data, we're in the bottom 10%, right? And that information, no matter how often we explain it to people who only look at that overview, it doesn't make it right. It gets lost, and it's then used to imply things about our schools that aren't true.
Okay, so it looks like we have those consensus, and I just want to make a personal comment that one of my proudest moments at this dais was the time that I was working with Peter, and we both talked about Goal Academy, and I still remember that moment and was very proud to stand up for an amazing alternative education campus throughout the state. So, hang on. Director DeVola?
Yeah, and just to everyone's point, it took me forever to figure out this whole goal thing. So knowing that I was on the board trying to figure this out, and I was in it, and it took a long time for me to understand what it meant and how it was, that just shows that the community as a whole has no idea how it affects us. And it takes us being proactive and saying things like this to educate the populace, because I was one that did not understand at first.
And then I wanted to address something real quick, because with public comment, I believe we have someone here who signed up for public comment. Lindsay, did you sign up for public comment? Okay. Alrighty. Anything in miscellaneous? Oh, Director DeVola?
Did anyone else have anything else we wanted to submit as a resolution for CASB? No, nothing.
And you have some time, because July 13th, and Lynette did a great
18th,
job
I
of
thought.
trying to solicit any resolutions.
Isn't it
But we
the
still have some time, but we'd have to hustle a bit.
It's July 18th, right?
July 18th or 13th?
18th. Okay. Cool.
Okay, then we are adjourned at 9:48 p.m.